character in the game. So, and it's a lot of fun to play with because we can just kind of throw them around, and that's where it gets its name, is because they're essentially a ragdoll. And basically, when the character dies, they play this death animation that is basically, all the animator needs to do is basically one frame, one or a few frames that determine like what's kind of the start of that velocity, and then the engine is just allowed to drop the character and animate it according to physics. So that's what you are seeing here, is all those joints, basically at the points of her arms, all of these little cones in here that we have. It determines how far those bones are allowed to move. We don't want it to be so that when they collapse, the bones detach or the arm flies through the body. We want to make sure they're limited so that it falls basically as you would expect a person to if they were dying.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And like, from that static mesh that you get from modeling to where we are right now, what's an average time to create?
It really, for the initial hero, it can be months, because there's a lot of going back and forth, and changes are made to the design, then we make changes to the model, it trickles down. But when we're doing skins, depending on how difficult the character is, it can be anywhere from a few hours to a few weeks.
Wow.
Depends on just how tough the skin is, how many challenges it presents for us.
Cool, thank you very much. And John, we have a play of the game.
Yeah, we're getting pretty close. I'm just polishing the shot up at this point. Mainly what goes into polish, a lot of people don't really appreciate the fact that we can get the shot like 90% of the way there in about 70% of the time, but to really try and bring it across line with all the little tiny details. So, you know, things like making sure that when she fires the gun, there's like a reaction in the shoulder. We tie that action in, that she squints a little bit and her face kind of scrunches up just for that brief little beat. All those little tiny details that kind of really make it sing. That takes us about 30% of the overall time. We're doing a lot of little stuff like checking penetrations, making sure that the fast little reload that she does right here, that her fingers are actually offset and animated, they're not just static. We're also kind of really trying to make sure that we tie in the camera at this point. So you notice that there are these little focal length hits to the camera every time she fires. There's a really big one here on the coach gun. You know, adding camera shake, just things that really tie everything together and make things feel more dynamic. And then one of the cool things about the polish phase too is we get to add little details like this, where because I took away that last camera push in, we had about 10 or 15 frames extra here where it's like, oh, let's put in like a cool little finger kind of gunslinger detail as a slight anticipation of where we're going with kind of telegraphing what's about to happen. And pretty much at this point, we're also getting it in-game so that our VFX artists and sound artists can go ahead and do their work. And what we end up with is this completed play of the game.
Oh, we have sound there?
So this is after they've gone in, put their effects works in. Normally there is sound as well, but if you want to check that out, just take a look at the game.
You can all imagine the pews. All right, we are at time here, but anyone with questions, please, please, please bring them over to the meet and greet area in 15 minutes. I want to give a round of applause to our artists here. Amazing work. Amazing work. And thank you all for coming out here on a Saturday morning. I know that can be a little rough at BlizzCon. We appreciate it. Thank you all for coming today, and have a great BlizzCon.
Thank you so much. It's a joy to work for Blizzard and make music for this game. I just got to say that. This is Susan Winsberg on the flute, Dove on the violin, Luann on the fiddle, Dan on the drums, Josh on the drums, G on the accordion, Chad on the bass. Thank you so much. Have a great con. Thanks.
Thank you for attending Immersive Sound.
Hello, Falstad Wildhammer was going to be on the Council of Three Hammers. What happened to him?
Yeah, Alex, what's up with that?
Thanks for pointing that out. We're gonna get that fixed.
Thank you.
There he is. The Wildhammer backstacker is in the house. First in line.
So very easy for us, people like us who is doing the production, to forget that we just provide the tools, and it's actually the fans who make the esports. If anyone ever doubts your passion towards esports, you tell them you're here in 2011 BlizzCon and you watch GSL final. Thank you very much. I love you all.
This song is dedicated to all the heroes of Azeroth. Come take a drink at the Lion's Pride.
I have been playing Blizzard games since I was 5 years old. My heart really goes into it.
For Azeroth!
The war between the factions kicks into high gear with an all-out raid experience where the faction is clearly the greatest enemy that you have.
All aboard! As we look forward to BlizzCon, you know, esports has been huge this year. We've got 12 teams coming in for the Arena Grand Finals. We've also seen amazing feedback on the Mythic Dungeon contest that we've held this year. We're really excited to have 4 teams come and compete for the top honors on that contest. And that's for the very first time is going to feature Battle for Azeroth Dungeons.
So yeah, speaking of Mythic Dungeons, a Mythic Dungeon challenge is actually a core part of our BlizzCon floor experience. You and your friends will be able to get in line and take a crack at one of our Mythic Keystone dungeons if you're there at BlizzCon. If you're able to finish the dungeon,
foes channeling that ancient power.
And you mentioned the Nexus. As I understand it, Orphea is the first Heroes character that is native to the Nexus. So tell me a little bit about that decision.
Yeah, we've been trying to figure out the right way to bring a unique hero that would be truly just for heroes. And so when we started, you know, kind of coming up with more of the lore, adding more of the backstory to the Nexus, we really felt like this is the right path. This is the right way to go, and this is like our first character, and we're just so excited that we can bring a unique hero to the Nexus.
Dude, and Orphea is a slam dunk of a character. She's got so many intricacies, so many interesting parts of her lore that you've been spelling out in the comics. What else are fans going to get to learn about for Orphea?
Well, it's just going to see how her story evolves. I'm like, I can't give away everything. She's gonna be hitting the PTR soon. People should really start to go and play. She does a lot of damage to her enemies. I think Chomp is actually probably my favorite ability.
I do love seeing that magic come out of the relic and attack. It is pretty impressive. And Orphea has a very interesting look about her. She's got the white hair, the red eyes. Can you tell me a little bit about the design of Orphea?
She just definitely wanted to have her own look. We wanted to have something that would be a little bit more like vibrant and kind of sassy. And like when I see her, that's kind of like the just emotions that she puts out. And it's wonderful. Like the whole team is already designing so many kind of wonderful skins. I can't tell you all the skins, but I'm like, I will tell you, I love looking through the like team folder for art and seeing it and being like, it's amazing.
This is a huge inspiration, I think, not just to Heroes fans, but I'm assuming to the entire Heroes community. There is so much here with Orphea that you have now opened Pandora's Relic and brought into Heroes. Can you tell us anything else that we might be excited for coming up?
I would say that this is just only the beginning for Heroes, and you never know who else is going to make their way to the Nexus.
Stephanie, thank you so much. And Rebecca, thank you for coming out in your beautiful Orphea cosplay with your giant and wonderful relic. This is Henchman Props that put all this together. They did such a wonderful job, so I do want to give them a shout out. And Stephanie, anything else you want to add to all the fans watching?
Just have a great BlizzCon. I hope everybody has a wonderful BlizzCon, and see you in the Nexus.
See you in the Nexus, guys. Back to you.
Henchman Designs kills it every time.
All the time.
Even her makeup looked incredible.
Yeah, she was gorgeous. My only question was, how big is that relic? Like, how heavy is that thing?
I know, right?
She's supposed to sort of like side sling it, like, you know.
Yeah, get that girl a massage afterwards.
I know.
All right, guys. Earlier we were asking you, who's dominating the social battleground? Is it Horde?
Oh, come on.
Or Alliance? Let's check out the results.
Oh,
yes!
no.
Yes.
You demons.
Zandala forever.
You undead.
Victory for Sylvanas.
No.
All of the things, Alex.
You burned the house down.
The 37% of you were still traitors, Alliance.
Oh, well, you guys got really into this
we
hashtag
dressed in
battle.
faction colors.
We did. We actually did dress in faction colors. But you guys got really into this battle. Well, you should probably read this one.
Leanne, Sylvanas. She says, Dark Lady, watch over you. Ah, yes, girl. And over you as well.
I'm hoping there's some. There you go. We got Temporal Wizard.
I will say,
time
man, that
end
cinematic was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
That actor's incredible as well. Big Boss Baby, hashtag don't use Twitter, which is hilarious.
All of that is amazing.
Friends, Tichondrius is ready to raid for the Horde. That's amazing. That must be their guild, which is really cool.
I love that they were doing like a guild watch.
Yeah.
Guild watch party.
I love
Go
that.
get some stuff. Jesus Paternia. I'm seeing all the new content at Warcraft and couldn't be more excited. Seeing my night elves being badass again did it for me. Yes. I'm actually really excited that the new war fronts that we're going into Teldrassil and we're gonna fix some stuff.
Yeah.
That was an emotional beginning of an expansion.
It was I've got to say, that cinematic is what everyone's just like, oh, whoa, we really are Horde versus Alliance.
We're going there.
Something bad happened.
Yeah, we are doing this.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
I know.
Well, you know, look, we all have a great time here, and it is now time to see some incredible voiceover actors who bring the characters to life for Overwatch. We're going to head over to the Mythic stage now for the start of Voices of Overwatch. Enjoy.
Oh, you know what? Actually, it's not quite ready yet.
Oh.
We're going to take a look actually at the Ashe Overwatch I'm getting a lot of
Yeah, we're gonna see some stuff.
We're gonna see some
We're
stuff.
gonna play some
We're
stuff.
gonna see the McCree cinematic.
Cinematics,
That's
baby.
what we're gonna see. All right, guys.
I hope they
It's
roll
coming.
all the cinematics because I just want to keep watching them.
Just the whole thing. Actually, last night when I was looking on Twitter, there was one person who was like, love the McCree cinematic, but how did they do that pie crumble?
Yes.
Because like just like all of these little tiny details. All right, guys,
Let's
it's
check it
ready.
out.
Check out that pie crumble. It's gonna be there in a minute.
We got trouble!
Jesse McCree. Been a while. You promised you'd write.
Well, Ash. I've been kind of busy.
We're pretty busy ourselves, so it's awful convenient you showing up today.
Yeah. You never been one to shy away from a good tip.
Hey, we worked hard for this score. You best move on now.
All I want is that crate. Everything else is yours.
This crate? Huh. Bob. Well, well. Now you got my attention. What is it?
That's none of your business.
Well, as I see it, now it's very much our business.
Doesn't always have to be this way, Ash.
Apparently, it does.
Looks like Bob got himself some upgrades.
Smoke him out of there! Last chance, McCree! Toss out your weapon!
All right, Ash. Here it comes.
Oh, shit!
What the? McCree?
Sorry about that, Bob. No hard feelings.
McCree? Hey! Untie me, McCree!
Say hi to the gang
talking to
for
you.
me.
I will not be ignored! I'm gonna rebuild Bob, and I'm gonna have him rip off your other arm!
Hey there, cowboy.
Welcome back, partner.
How long have I been gone?
Far too long.
What happened?
Well, that's a story for another time. But I got a call. We're getting the band back together. They want me, but really, they need you.
Jesse, wait. What are you going to do?
I've got some business to attend to. Say hi to the monkey for me.
Monkey?
Scientist. Whatever.
That's such a great cinematic.
That pie crumble paid off, didn't it?
The pie crumble
It did.
You guys saw the pie crumble. All right, now it's time to meet some of the incredible voice actors who bring your favorite Overwatch characters to life. Let's head over to the Mythic stage for the in-progress Voice of Overwatch panel. Here we go.
Brave of you to show your face around here, Jesse.
Look at her! Oh my goodness. Oh my, look at this outfit. Do you see her outfit? What is happening? Oh my gosh. You know, we could stop right here and have so much to talk about already. Am I wrong? Like just these two? Oh my goodness. Look how great they look together. They look amazing. Gorgeous.
We coordinated their outfits.
All right, door number 3. What do we got?
Why does everyone keep pestering me about my aardvarks?
Can you see okay? Keys, look at this. Look how committed he is. Look at this. Right here. Look at the light. Are you there? Oh, we're going to talk about that soon, too. Yes. All right. So if we bring Torbjorn, who else do you think we should bring out?
Sorry, I haven't tipped for bulking up. All this armor is heavy.
Right here, my love. All right. 2 spots left. I wish we could place bets on who you think it is. Oh my God, those are the best faces right there. Amazing. All right, so behind door number 5, we have... Come on out, guys. Look at it. Commitment. That is some commitment. Oh, D. Baker, everybody. And John Lipout. Good. Come on down. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. That was very rock and roll, D. I love it very much. And of course, none of us would be here without the one, the only, the fabulous Mr. Michael Chu. Come on out, Michael. All right. Oh my goodness. Right. Oh my goodness. Every time I do this, I always just kind of have the urge to sit here and just stare at them, right? Can we just sit and stare at them for a little while? Like, to think we've got all these amazing actors here. Let's just have a couple seconds.
Should we stare at each other?
Can we stare at you guys?
Yeah, you stare at you. You guys stare at them. They'll stare at you. It's so great. It's nice for Michael and I because, Michael, we can talk about this. We never see them all together. So to have a cast with us is such a big deal for us. I mean, I feel like I'm nerding out and as excited as all of you. So, Michael, it's really fun, right?
I have the best seat in the house right
I
here.
know.
So.
This is our job.
Because we don't record as an ensemble.
Or I know, never. I mean, it's so rare that we do. So I want to start with our cowboys and cowgirls. Shall we start talking to them a little bit? Oh, my gosh. Matt, what's it like? I think all the characters are cool, but to play a cowboy, a gunslinger, and walk around. First, I want to see you walk like a cowboy. Can you just walk like a cowboy?
Oh,
No, please, please. I need to
Let's
see you.
see.
Yeah. I want to see you. Yeah, walking like...
It's about the heavy heel falls.
Right.
You gotta get those ching.
And the buckle and the
ching.
belt buckle.
You gotta lead with your pelvis a little bit, you know?
That's exactly it.
When you're a cowboy, that's the center of the universe.
Yes. Right.
True.
So
You've already punched me once in this show. You gotta punch me twice.
See, they're already
what I'm here for.
We're gonna talk. I mean, it's all you two are McCree and Ash. That's why this is happening. But anyway, so what's it like been playing McCree? I mean, this is the coolest role.
It's been incredible. Are you kidding me? Like, I mean, this project has been not just an amazing community built around it, but like with each progression of the story, each part of the world's lore that expands upon it. It's a gift to be a part of it, and McCree especially. Just as a person who grew up loving, you know, classic gunslinger tales, and good to see kind of that represented in a semi-futuristic space, and have it still fit without feeling like it's been completely, you know, pushed into it. You don't see a lot of stories that do that well. So and I mean, did you guys get a chance to see the short yesterday?
Some of them might have.
That was surreal. I was over at the Legendary stage watching it happen and just hearing the reactions live, and it was overwhelming. So.
And same thing over here. And if you guys remember, in the inside of the ear, there's like a few, like this puffy hairs that come out of it. So we'll add that right now. And they are pretty much very similar shape to, they look very much like the eyebrows. And that's like a little design secret. If you have certain elements and you repeat them, it will give your character more iconicity. Is that a word? Sorry, English is not my first language. And we are fairly close to finish. The one element that we're missing is the hexagon here in the plate. And hexagon, 6 sides, so difficult, not really. But we can make it way simpler by doing a square, like this. And then we add 2 extra triangles at each side. There you go. We're really, really close to finish. Okay. Let's start locking in some of these lines. Basically, all of these scratchy lines we have, we'll start making them more clear and crisp. And let's do it like this, just going over them, picking one line, and insisting on it. And because Hammond is all fluffy, he's covered in fur, let's add like this little extra hair, penacho in Spanish. I don't really know how to say that in English. Then we'll keep doing that here at the ear. Same thing here, in the inside of our ear. And at the back of the head. Are you guys doing all right? I don't want to rush it. I want you guys to see that it's actually very simple, that this is really easy to learn.
We're good.
We're good? Oh, thank you. Let's go over the other side. Up here. Oops, I almost missed. Over here, the fluffiness. And are we doing good? Awesome. That's really what I want. I want everybody to draw nonstop. Drawing is the most fun thing. Drawing and art is the thing that made me fall in love with Blizzard.
Daniel does this in his sleep too.
For sure. And we're actually really close to finish. Let's end up with the very, very last final details. Let's add the little teeth down here, and they're very simple. They are basically this rhomboid, a square shape like this. Not a rhomboid. Come on, Daniel. You should know your shapes. Let's add a little bit here. And so close to finish, guys. You'll be able to hang this in your fridge. It will be amazing. Your dads will be so proud. I wish I had a star, a gold star, so I could give everybody a gold star. It would be incredible, but I don't. I'm very sorry. I'll draw you one. And he usually also has like this inside shape, kind of mimic the overall shape of his face. And the very, very last touch, it's the whiskers. And they are simple lines, just like this. 1, 2. And you guys finished Hammond. You guys have a Hammond.
But you're not done yet. Every great masterpiece needs an autograph, so sign your name on your portrait and then hold them up. We want to see them.
Yeah, show us, please.
Show us your Hammonds. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Look at this one with the cheeks.
Awesome.
The cheeks over here. Oh, I love them.
That's awesome.
Daniel, watch out. Watch out.
No, don't take
These
my
are
job.
amazing.
Oh,
right.
guys, this is awesome. Thank you so much for showing me.
Well, I hope that you guys join us in our next session. It's at 12:45, and we're going to have another Blizzard artist teaching you to draw Pachimari. Also, if you check us out on Virtual Ticket under the Viewing Party Guide, there's step-by-step instructions on 12 of Blizzard's heroes. For those of you with a clipboard, please pass them to the end of your row. Just stick the pencil right in there. You can take your work of art with you, but stick the pencil right in there, pass them over, and enjoy BlizzCon. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you for attending Blizzard Art Studio.
Sorry, guys, they told us 5 people are going to show up. There's a lot more than I expected, but thank you. Thank you all for coming. The Pylon Show is a StarCraft talk show. We're going to talk a lot about StarCraft Remastered today, and I'm one of the hosts. The other host is a super handsome devil down there, Dan Artosis Stemkowski. Oh, yeah. You guys have heard of him. So they watched that Hearthstone tournament like 6 years ago, I think.
This is the Hearthstone stage, isn't it? I mean,
we're not alone, though. We got some awesome guests for you guys. I know that you've heard of this guy, watched his stuff. He might have taught a bunch of you how to play StarCraft. Sean Day9 Plot is here with us.
Glad to be here, Jeff.
Thank you for coming. And if you're playing StarCraft Remastered, largely in part, you're only able to do that because there's super smart people that they imported from Australia to do that. Lead engineer Grant Davies is here with us as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, and thank you guys for doing the Pylon Show as well. It really is fantastic.
He's really soft-spoken, so I'll retranslate everything he says for you guys. You can trust me. I speak very well. We got a quick show for you guys, but if you're interested in this conversation, we do the show every Wednesday, 5:45 on In Control TV, and then it's back on YouTube on Artosis TV. It's a Pylon Show. We have a lot of great guests. We talk StarCraft. So we're going to talk about StarCraft Remastered. And Dan, I believe you have the first topic for us.
I do. We had a very special show match last night between the winners of the 2 leagues that myself and Tasteless, your brother, and our person that we work with a lot, the lovely Tasteless. The ASL versus KSL show match. Of course, we had Last versus Reign. And I just want to see what you guys thought about that, if you got to catch it.
I still feel like Last can win it. I still feel like it.
I
wanted him to win so bad. I feel like Last is so much better than Rain. Rain's amazing, but I feel like Last is like just under Flash level. And then Sparkle. I don't know how you win on that map as Terran.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you when I figure that out, but I hope the map is never used again, so.
What would you get? I mean, did that matchup show kind of the evolution of TVP right now for StarCraft Remastered? Like, it's just changed so much over the years. Last goes into it as kind of, they call him Alpha Go, right? Like, he's supposed to be the mechanical kind of god player. And then Rain is one of the hardest working Protoss I've ever seen. So it was a 3-1. They went kind of quick, actually, which is kind of funny because some StarCraft Remastered matches can be like when you and Nick had to cast a couple, you're like, well, we're here for 13 hours. This is a very long. That was quick, though. It was like an hour and a half, maybe, tops.
Yeah, it's still so interesting to see Brood War strategy evolving over time, because, I mean, like, the Terran versus Protoss matchup has had a lot of, you know, the barracks, bunker, I repair with a billion SCVs, and then I stabilize on 2 bases, and then we play a game. And there were 2 interesting things to me. One was that when Last was trying to be cheesy and sneaky, he would still put the bunker at the front to try to, like, feint a fast expand, and then, you know, do that really nice 2-factory build that won him a game. But Rain somehow was going like 2 Zealot openings on Third World, like the early Zealot rush on Gladiator, and managed to like break the front. And you're not supposed to break the front. That's not how it's supposed to happen. Unless it's one of my ladder games, then of course I'm really weak with Terran, so.
No, those Zealots come after me, I know what you mean, but the game has actually evolved so much. It's really crazy, because I mean, we all played 20 years ago and for many years competitively, but to have it kind of coming back up again now and seeing these different strategies that the pros are using and the fact that they work, this is something I would see before, and I'd be like, huh, you don't even know what you're doing, but these are the best players in the world.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that stands out to me about Last is how resilient he is as a player. There's a number of times, and particularly going back to his KSL victory, where he 4-0'd Jaedong. But there were a number of times in those games where it looked like he was really down, and he's just the sort of player that doesn't matter what's going on, he just looks at it and he says, this is fine, and a few minutes later, he's won the game.
Yeah, he really kind of grinds it out, but I mean, a single best of 5, what I always say, the Protoss always wins, right?
Was it surprising to you guys? I think it was Loser's choice for the map. Were you guys surprised that he chose Sparkle for the 4th map?
It's funny, too, because I felt like part of the reason, surprise.
Yes, yeah.
But we were talking a little bit about it behind the scenes, and I guess like Flash, who has just for years been the pathfinder, the guy that so many people model their play after, and Last being one of those big ones as well. The 2-port Wraith and just kind of the different play style to hopefully catch somebody off guard. It seemed to be that they were kind of following that way, but it was also funny to see, though, like, sometimes when you bust out kind of I don't know, like a weird strategy in a match like that, Rain made it look bad. Like, the final game was unfortunately pretty anticlimactic because his idea just didn't work. It's kind of a funny Brood War thing, too. Like, you'll try these ideas, because in StarCraft 2, you try ideas, and there's, like, a little bit more of a gentle way of being like, no, stupid idiot, like, that was wrong. And you're like, oh, okay. But in Brood War, you're like, you're dumb, get out. And you're like, oh, okay. And that felt like that kind of moment a little bit.
Yeah, see, I enjoy ragging on Sparkle as a map. And, you know, just in the long history of Brood War, there's been essentially no island maps.
They try to make it work.
Like, every now and again, there's some map maker at OG.
So were you doing the lines in the character? Or people are like, oh, you sound just like him. Or I love it if they said, you don't sound like him at all. Like, what happened when you did lines?
That's what I thought was going to happen for sure. So my plan was to not make it obvious, because I knew it could go 2 ways. Either I make it obvious and we see how that goes, or I just kind of downplay it and get what the normal, you know, what the experience of cosplaying is. And that's what I went for. I did slip a couple of times. There's a few times on camera where I just couldn't resist it. Somebody was filming me and they were like, hey, can you do one of your emotes? And I was like, I don't know what I can. And I was like, I could do the dance, but I'm going to fall over and break everything. So I said, can I just do a line? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I was like, okay, cool. You filming?
Build them up, break them down.
All right.
And the guy didn't expect that, so he had kind of that real quick, like, that was pretty good. So I was definitely worried he was going to be like,
That would have been amazing. I've heard you guys tell me if you know the story, some of our cast has gone online and played as our character. Maybe it was Josh Petersdorf as Roadhog, and they're like, dude, you don't sound like him at all. It was so like, I love these stories.
I tried to do, I really want to do that. Matt, you're the one everybody talks about doing that because your ultimate like makes people scatter. It's kind of the
so
way
it's
it
even
works.
funnier if nobody's playing McCree. They get really confused.
What? And Molten Core didn't have the same, like people go, okay, he's Molten Core, but they don't run and hide when they hear Molten Core. The other thing I realized very quickly is that a lot of people either don't have their headsets on or don't have the mic set up. So after a couple of sessions, I realized, like, I'm wasting my time. They're hearing me, but I'm not hearing them reacting, which is lame. That's like, you know, or they're not hearing me at all. So I was like, either way, yeah. So I've done a couple streaming things where I got to do it, and that was a lot of fun.
I love you for that. So what's it been like playing Torbjorn? Because I think, Michael, you were one of the original characters we brought in pretty early on. Well, actually, let's, Michael, talk about the genesis of Torbjorn, where this idea came from. Then we'll come back to you, Keith.
Well, Torbjorn, I think the genesis is sort of obvious. We were doing a loving homage to Warcraft dwarves, but one of the things that I love about Torbjorn is I think, and he's sort of like secretly one of my favorite characters to write because I think, you know, Torbjorn remains out there. You guys have suffered a lot, so. But I think
you're not
that,
very
like,
good at keeping secrets, by the way.
You know, there's a thing about his character where he sort of comes off as sort of just being a jokey, like inconsequential character, but I actually think he's really interesting, and you know, he's cantankerous, and like people give him a lot of crap, but like, you know what, he's right a lot of the time, and I really like playing into that aspect of his character, being a little bit more of a serious one.
That's great. I love hearing the genesis stories like this. So for you, with all that, what's it been like playing Torbjorn? What's your take on him? Tell me about your world, Keith.
Yeah, I love him. He's very pragmatic, but he's also, you know, very logical with everything, but he's also very passionate. And that comes off as being very hot-headed, and it's written into his abilities, you know, the whole Molten Core, like it's all his lines. I mean, a lot of that's just written in. The writing is amazing on this. And so I find a lot that I have in common with him, because I'm like that. I'm very passionate about, I'm very dogmatic, and if you look at his history, especially in his youth, he was very dogmatic about the whole Omnic situation, and that this is a bad thing, and we need to watch out, and people didn't believe him. The other thing that I really, like, I'm very positive guy, like always glass, half full guy. And he seems to be like that too. I find a lot of that in his dialogue, even in the thick of it, which, by the way, he would always be there for the team. He's that guy. He's the rock. He's sturdy. He's tempered like steel over the years. One of the first members. Very righteous in what he's doing. But cantankerous is right, because, yeah, he does. That's that hothead coming out. And I could see him getting very angry, but not maintaining it for too long, which is a lot like me.
Yeah.
And I don't get angry too often. He's a little grumpier than I am a majority of the time. But that's part of the charm that I find, and I think his intentions are always good. And the other thing I really attach with him is that he's a family man. And I think he's been through so much in his history that at this point, his family, and I should say his friends like Reinhardt, are the most important thing to him. And he fights for them, and he fights for a just cause that he believes in. And at this point, he wouldn't waste his time with his hard work on anything he didn't believe in.
I've known you for many years, and even if you weren't sitting here, I'd say that you have such a huge heart yourself as a human, and I mean that. So I think that huge heart of yours comes through in Torbjorn so beautifully. So I love Torbjorn so much. So thank you for doing all of this. Can we just clap that he cosplayed? Like, what? I mean, yeah.
So much fun.
You all got to up your game next year. I'm just saying. I want everybody cosplaying, especially Wrecking Ball cosplaying. That's what I want. All right. So of course we've got Brigitte. What? So here you are at your first look. Take a look at everybody. It's amazing. I know. It's been fun when I bring in new heroes because we're recording mid-session and you guys don't know about them yet. And I'm like, your life's about to change as you know it. I remember having this conversation like, girl, do you have Twitter up? Like, are you ready for all this? So what's it been like? Here you are.
I don't know. I have been just overwhelmed with love and just, I've heard so many stories from people who play the game and they appreciate my character, and it's so undescribable. I don't know. I just, honestly, at this point, I haven't come far enough to like actually process any of this.
Hasn't hit you yet, has it?
No. Just getting here and seeing all of BlizzCon, it's amazing. It's huge. It's so cool. It's so cool. And yeah, I haven't processed it at all. But it's fun.
I love it. I don't know how. I mean, I think those of you who follow Matilda know she's one of us. She's a gamer. I mean, talk about when you realized that you were reading for Overwatch, because we don't always tell people what they're coming in for at first. And when it dawned on you that, oh my God, I'm going to be in Overwatch. Talk about that.
I mean, yeah. So you didn't tell me. I knew it was for Blizzard during my second voice test, which was cool enough. And then the third voice test, when I read through the lines and I just realized it was for Overwatch. I had all these thoughts in my head. So one thought was going like, okay, you're gonna blue this, so don't even try anymore. And then one other thought was just like, oh, they're just using lines from Overwatch just to have like example lines. This is not Overwatch. Don't try, Matilda. It's not gonna be Overwatch. And then I had this other part of me that was like, this might work. I think I should actually really, really try it. And
Otherwise, you weren't. You're going to be like, I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to read.
You can make that a Brigitte line. I think I should really try.
I should probably try.
Make that happen. It's perfect.
No, but it was so cool to just sit in the studio and freak out, and then I've never felt more professional because I just like put that all aside. I was like, I'm gonna do this. So I had this moment of just like shaking my entire body and just like, okay. And then I just went into it and I gave it 200%. And
it's been amazing. And Michael, I think the minute we heard Matilda talk, we knew. Because again, with all the casting that we do, I think why you love our actors so much is because we find the people who are the character. So the idea for Brigitte, when we heard her, we knew. Because what's your take on Brigitte? What were when you created her, what were you thinking?
Well, I love Brigitte. I'm basically going to say that every character is secretly my favorite, but because Brigitte is actually one of the first heroes that when I started working on Overwatch that I sort of seeded into the story, because I love this idea with Reinhardt that like Reinhardt, this completely, ridiculous guy going on his adventures, and he needed someone to like go with him to kind of keep him safe, and so that's sort of where the idea of Brigitte came out of. And I love this relationship between the two of them and exploring that, and I think it really puts Brigitte in a really interesting place as far as a hero goes. So I love her.
Yeah, and the voice and everything that you brought, even your nervousness, like even you talking now, I'm acting like I'm hosting this, but I'm thinking, oh my God, you are Brigitte, you're talking, everything, all your movements are all her. So what do you feel like, what do you connect with about her? Like when you think about her and what she means to you and where that intersection is, what would you say that is?
I think so her cheeriness is definitely something that I have in me, but it's just not out all the time. It's definitely out now. This is so cool and awesome, but I think she does have like a serious side to her. So I think I don't know, I just relate to her a lot. I just wish I was hardworking and ambitious. So not as lazy as I am, but
hard work pays off.
Yes, it does. But Matilda hasn't gotten that yet. So I think I relate to her a lot, but it's just like she is badass and she does whatever she wants and she goes for it, and I don't do that.
And don't forget about the cats.
Welcome
the
to
cats. Oh my God. Do you like?
Stories. They are what bind us together. Since the dawn of time, mankind has been telling stories. Sitting by the dancing lights of campfires, weaving original tales of love, intrigue, horror. You see, man is simply a walking story. People are all stories, just waiting to be read. But some stories, my darling, some stories leap out and grab you like a great snake until they slowly consume you, until the imagined reality of your mind is correct. Some stories bore their way into your brain like a drill, twisting and twisting and twisting and twisting and twisting until they become a part of you. Till they become your world. Now, you may think this is a story of horror, but I am merely a gatekeeper. It is my duty to open the portal to that other world. That world has become your world. Say its name. Say its name. Say its name. Azeroth. This is Build-A-Panel. I am Mr. Wren, and there will be story. In a series of online votes, we came to you, and we asked what you wanted this panel to be about. You voted, and you chose World of Warcraft. We then came to you, and we asked what you wanted the focus of the panel to be about. You again voted, and you chose world building and lore. We then asked you to choose a question that we would pose at the end of the panel. That question will be posed at the end of the panel. We then asked you who you wanted to host the panel. You chose me! Yet you gave me the most inelegant nickname, Scarin' DePaul. You will learn, my friends, names have power. Please welcome now 3 very powerful names on today's panel. Principal level designer on World of Warcraft, Gary Plattner. Lead level designer on World of Warcraft, Jim Chadwick. Senior game designer on World of Warcraft, Steve Burke. And now, let Build-A-Panel begin. Gentlemen, would you please introduce yourselves and these lovely artists?
Absolutely. I'm Steve Burke. I'm a designer on World of Warcraft, where I get to help lead our amazing team of quest designers. And our quest designers are practically joined at the hip with these guys, our level design team.
I love things that are joined at the hip.
For Battle for Azeroth, I had the privilege of overseeing Kultiris from beginning to end. So if you liked Kultiris, thank you. We're going to be sitting right over here after the panel. Please come by and say hi to us. If you didn't like Kultiris, I brought my friend Gary Plattner here. He'd love to hear all about it.
That's right, yeah. Please come and see me. But my name is Gary Plattner. I've worked on World of Warcraft from the beginning, actually. I've been here for 19 years. Most of that time on the art team. Thank you, my family.
One fan.
And thank you. Thank you. Yeah, most of that time I've been on the art team, but for the last 3 years, I've had the privilege of being a level designer. I think it's the best job on the team. It's good, honest work.
Yes,
you can get it. It's good work. It's good work. And I get to work with my very good friend, my very old friend, Jim Chadwick.
Thank you. I'm Jim Chadwick. I'm Jim Chadwick. I'm the lead level designer for World of Warcraft. I've been with the team also for about 19 years. It's really interesting that I guess people ask you what you do for a job, and it's kind of hard to describe. So it's great today that we actually get to show you how we take something that Steve Burke and his team has put together and make it visual, so you can actually see the visual storytelling, whether it be someone that's broken down to the cart that's blown off the side of the road to something that's a little bit more dramatic, like Proudmoore Keep. Anyway, decided to show you off.
The question, gentlemen, where do we start?
Well, that's a great question.
Good question.
So with every zone, when we break ground, we do have some high-level story obligations that we like to put out there, some things that we want to accomplish with the zone. but we try to leave the vast majority of the work for the designers themselves so that they can explore and create and have ownership of that space. Coltiris was a little bit different. Coltiris was...
I'm a little bit different.
We are all a little bit different.
Yeah, we work for Blizzard.
What I mean by that is that Coltiris was not, we didn't start from scratch. Those zones had been in Warcraft lore since the very beginning. So we knew that this was going to be a kingdom of humans that set sail from Gilneas and became this hardy seafaring people. So we knew that about their culture. We knew that they had created the greatest naval fleet that Azeroth had ever seen. We knew that it was the birthplace of Jaina Proudmoore, one of our favorite heroes. So we wanted to tell a special, intimate story there.
My hand does that sometimes. It's like a murloc. I love you. Tell us more.
Can we trade places?
No.
No? So, also we knew... Are we just changing this whole thing?
Yes. It's live, dear boy.
All right.
Look at all the confused faces.
So we also knew that we needed to create the capital city of Borealis, right? And creating cities in World of Warcraft, as you guys will attest to, is nothing easy. It's one of the hardest things that we do. And Jim Chadwick was responsible. I'm sorry.
Colin Wolrd.
Colin. I'm all confused now.
I was
It's got me
responsible.
flustered. Colin was in charge of the layout of Borealis. And so, Colin, why don't you tell everybody how that went?
Sure. Thanks, Steve.
Jim.
So, my name is Colin Wolrath. I'm a level designer here on the World of Warcraft team. I've been on the team for about 5 years. During Battle for Azeroth, I got to work on the city of Borealis, like Steve was talking about. I also got to work on a number of different places all over Tiergard Sound. And today, I kind of just want to show you a little bit of our process for how we build cities in Borealis, or in World of Warcraft for that matter. So, kind of what we're looking at here. This is more of a finished version of Borealis, as everybody's kind of familiar with, who's played through Battle for Azeroth. But cities in World of Warcraft do not start like this. They start in a much more different, much raw form than what we're looking at here. So if you guys will kind of go along with me on a little journey here. And when we're talking about cities in World of Warcraft, we look at older cities like Gilneas, Shattrath, Dalaran for inspiration, more recently Suramar, and most of our cities in World of Warcraft, they actually start a lot like this. This is a very, 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 very early version of Borealis in its first version. And it's real simple here. We're looking at these red lines really were meant to represent roads, and the green spaces were meant to represent just districts or places of interest as you move around the space.
When you're designing, do you listen to music at all?
All the time.
What is your favorite song or tune or genre of music to put you in the mood for design?
I actually listen to a lot of old game music, like 8-bit, 16-bit.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not expect that answer. Please continue.
Yeah. So from this, we quickly then move into sort of a second phase. And what we're doing here is we're trying to nail sort of 3 big bullet points. And the first one is flow. And that's how you progress through this space as a player, right? How does it feel when you stop and you take quests or that kind of stuff? Do we like the spacing between what we call POIs or points of interest? And then from this, we also have a sort of a second thing we're trying to hit, which is scale. And since this is we're talking about a human city, right? Scale is a huge part of that because it needs to feel like a medieval city, a very classical space. So that was really important with this. And then from this, we'll then quickly kind of move into the last version of this, which is where we're actually taking those scale block pieces and we're going to actually start bringing in finalized assets from the art team. These are the same buildings. This is the same shot that I was just showing you guys. To try to line up shots. We're trying to line up a shot here with Proudmoore Keep. And this is to kind of hit the third bullet point, which is the vibe and the theme of the space. And that's my process.
What did you want the vibe and the theme of this particular space to feel?
Well, so like Steve was saying earlier, with Coltiris, the vibe here needs to be, like you can almost taste the salt in the air. This is a naval city and naval power, so their town needs to reflect that sort of style when you come through here. So it needs to feel like a hearty place, a very homey place.
You wanted to feel very lived in, very popular.
Yes, we absolutely wanted to feel like when you came here, they had already been here for a very, very long time, and you're stepping into their space.
Excellent. So, tell me, have you ever gone in the real world, perhaps to Europe or perhaps somewhere, that inspired you to create streets like this, visually?
Sure. We look at references all the time. I've been to England a number of times, but for this city, we looked at a lot of places in France. We looked at cities like Hamburg quite a bit to try to get some of the
famous French town of Hamburg.
Yes. So we looked at a lot of different older medieval cities for inspiration.
Excellent. Are there any statues or points of interest we might find that would surprise us?
Probably not. I can show you kind of some of the process for how we would start bringing in something like that.
Please do.
So for instance, here we have this sort of middle center district of town, and we could bring in a statue here of Dalen very quickly and kind of orient where we want him to be positioned in this center square.
Am I right in thinking this is a Proudmoore ancestor?
This is Dalen Proudmoore. This is the Grand Admiral of Coltiris. So.
It's Jaina's father.
Jaina's father.
His father. Jaina's having a very big year this year.
Yes. He is. You seen that statue downstairs? That's my favorite statue.
Yeah, really nice.
That instantly.
So, Mr. Wren.
Yes.
So you can see we go through a lot of different processes starting a zone. And every level designer starts a little different way. So let's look in on Josh. Let's have Josh introduce himself and show us what he's going to show us today.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Navarro. I'm a level designer on World of Warcraft. I've been making games for about 10 years now. I've been a prop artist. I've been an environment artist. But being a level designer is by far my favorite. And that's because I get to create beautiful worlds for players to enjoy. So I'm super excited to show you guys how we create those worlds. So this is the very early stages of the Underrot. You might have seen it in Battle for Azeroth, which is a dungeon. The Underrot, which is a dungeon. Battle for Azeroth's expansion. But what you can see here is that I'm just focusing on making a really cool composition in the beginning. So I do that by grabbing these blocks and really just moving them around. And I'm thinking maybe this stuff will be a building, and maybe these will be a tree. And I'll copy these places around. And I want to make sure that I'm creating a cool composition and also a really cool and fun place to run through. So I want to call out the roads as a very beginning step. I'll do that just by keeping it loose and making these marks here. And that way, I can pass this off to Quest, and we can play test it and make sure this is all locked down and usable before we move on to the art phase. And really quick, let me just show you what this looks like after we replace all this blue block stuff with actual art.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out our basic spaces, how big something should be, if it feels right. It's really size is what we're trying to
That
figure
was
out.
interesting. It did reflect the moldy atmosphere of this cavern. It looked like,
soon
you
will
know
be.
when you have yogurt and you pull it off and there's that water at the top? It looks like that what you were doing.
Yeah.
You were like doing the yogurt water level. What flavor of yogurt do you like best?
Strawberry.
Strawberry
Yeah,
is
yeah,
the winner. You just put it in there. Josh, tell me, was there a teacher that inspired you?
Yeah, I had a teacher in school and college that really helped me, so that was awesome. I think I didn't really get it until I met him, and then I was able to.
You want to shout out their name?
Sure, yeah. His name's Nick Marks. Yeah, he's
Teachers are important.
It's very important.
They set
yeah.
us on our path.
Totally.
Am I making you nervous?
A little bit.
Mission accomplished.
You're so close to me right now.
Josh is uncomfortable.
They voted for this.
I know. Why?
Never let them vote for this.
All right.
Show
all right.
us more, Magic Man.
So you can see all the temporary stuff is out and how far this comes along with just replacing those pieces, which is really cool. Another thing that I've done is added more detail to the terrain. You can see our terrain here, which is pretty cool. And I can sculpt this around and move it up and down. And I can also add secondary textures, which give the environment a little bit more depth when I'm starting to paint this in.
Well, Josh, you're telling a story with the bone.
Absolutely, yeah. So if I want you to start here and go here, I want something to be in between. So that can be anything. It could be something small like dinosaur bones. And that's also suggesting that maybe there was life down here at one point and it's been consumed by the underrot. And also the buildings too. The buildings here show that maybe there was trolls living down here at one point and now it's all in ruins.
Do you think spare is better, or do you like to populate it with more items?
I think it depends on the level. It can be challenging, especially with something with the underrot. It can become very overwhelming. There can be a lot of busyness and noise. So you have to really be conscious of not flooding it with too many assets, too many things going on, but still providing it with that chaotic look.
I like chaotic looks.
Absolutely.
I look like a head waiter at a mausoleum. They don't have head waiters at mausoleums.
Well, Mr. Wren, that's an interesting topic, actually. If we want things to feel busy, we'll put an area that's not busy near something that we want to feel thick. So we have that sort of contrast, which I think you can identify with.
Indeed.
Yes.
I think Josh is doing too while he's going over the space is he's trying to make sure that spatially it feels right. There's a road flowing correctly. Our areas, making sure that like the actual going to the next POI, the next spot feels right. And then from there we just keep slowly iterating. While it's unpainful, if it feels we need to move it out 30 yards or 100 feet, it's not going to be painful for him to move it before he's putting any detail in.
Because it all comes back to story.
Exactly.
What is the story of this level? What story do you want the player to feel as they progress through it?
Exactly. Story dictates everything.
In every iteration of this goes back and forth. Like I said, they were joined to the hip. This goes back and forth with the quest designer.
Now, iteration. Would you explain what iteration is?
Iteration is where we look at something and we play through everything at every step. And if we have notes that'll help steer the zone where we feel it needs to be, we'll give those notes back to these guys and they'll iterate on it. They'll make changes. But these guys work really close with the quest designers, and one of the things with what he's doing right now is that we'll play through that space, we'll run through it, and we've got a different lens that we look through. Like we need to know how many monsters is this going to be able to hold? What can we spawn here? What's the story? Is it about the dinosaur bones? Is it about something else? How are we going to really move you through that space? And them communicating is key. It's important.
Well, it's also flow. Like he's even put in dinosaur bones there. What he's trying to do is steer your eye to the left and then bring it up to the actual point you want him to go to. So you'll find little ways to kind of tell that story, like tell little things that are happening on the zone, but really trying to lead the eye of the player and the player himself to a point that you're trying to get him to.
Right.
Talking about iteration too is something we constantly do. Sarah is working on an area right now, Narathi, which is something I started first with my first PvP zone.
I
Good morning.
am.
Please introduce yourself to our lovely crowd.
So hi everyone, my name is Sarah Wands. I am a level designer on the World of Warcraft team, and I've been on the team for almost 3 years now, where I had the privilege of working on Drustvar, if we have any Drustvar fans in the house. Yeah. My background is actually in graphic design, but believe it or not, there are a lot of really similar themes that run through both professions, so I ended up transitioning my way to level design, and it's my dream job, and Blizzard is my dream company. So today, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of behind the scenes on the Arathi Basin Upres, which we just announced yesterday. So as Jim mentioned, he worked on it, and Jim is my boss. So imagine your boss coming to you and saying, hey, redo this thing I did, but make it better.
Perfect better. Yeah.
Of course, it was perfect before. But, you know, technology has advanced in the 15 years since.
Oh, gotta throw age out there.
just to put it in perspective, we are still using the same engine that vanilla was built on, believe it or not. But we have really talented engineers and programmers who have helped raise the visual bar to what you see today. And actually, in 2004, when vanilla launched, the pinnacle of cell phone technology was the Razr flip phone, if any of you remember that. So it's been a while. So in redoing Arathi, I really wanted to concentrate on highlighting all of those technological advances, such as view distances. We can give you really long, expansive view distances without melting your graphics card, which is great. So I really wanted to make sure to keep everything true to Arathi, the feel of Arathi, because it's always been one of my favorite battlegrounds for the Horde. So, yeah. Don't be shy, Hordes. Come on.
Horde.
So yeah, that was really my main motivation, was keeping the feel of Arathi that everyone knows and loves, but giving it the facelift that it deserves.
What surprises will we find that you might drop in?
Oh, surprises. So this is something that we all probably shouldn't do, but enjoy doing when no one's looking. So we like to hide little Easter eggs here and there.
Can you speak to a favorite of yours?
I suppose I can. It's not in Arathi, but
Well, then save that story if you'd like to tell it later.
I can tell it now.
And you tell it now.
Okay.
Your boss is over there.
He is. Sorry, Jim.
Good working with
So there was one day that I was kind of loopy. I'd had too much caffeine or something, and I noticed in our asset library we had this baby. And I was like, that's kind of funny. Why do we have a baby? And so I put it in a tree, in a bird's nest, thinking no one would see it. For sure, no one's going to see this. It's in Drustvar, you know, and we don't have flying yet, so I thought there's no way anyone's going to find it. And then I go on Reddit one day, and you guys found it. It's like, all right, okay, we found the baby in the tree.
Did they give the baby in the tree a name?
I didn't. Do you guys want to?
Please give the baby in the tree a name.
Red.
Red!
Perfect.
Baby in the tree.
Baby in the tree.
Tree baby is now called Ren.
Yeah.
He is cursed with that shameful, shameful name. And will carry on my lineage. So when you visit the baby in the tree, share a moment, share your pity for tree baby Ren. Tell us more, tell us more, tell us more.
Well, so here you can see we've got original Arathi that Jim did so well the first time, of course.
And then there's Diet Iraqi. It's original Iraqi.
So what I really started with was, as I mentioned, the view distances, really wanting to open up the space and make it feel like the Scottish Highlands that the original vision was trying to capture. So I'm going in and I'm really simplifying the shapes in the mountains. You can see the original was a bit more busy. And we've learned a lot since then. We've gained a lot of technology just even in our painting tools, we have a lot more options in level of detail, and our environment artists do such an amazing job giving us these new trees, assets, any kind of new tile set that they paint to really keep the same vibe of Arathi, but helping to fill in these big spaces and keep it more simple.
Do you find that the angle of the tree or the amount of moss, that will affect the story as well? Tell a different visual story?
Oh, sure. If we're trying to lead a player in a certain direction, we might tilt a tree a little bit to the one way you want to go, or sometimes a trick that we do is we create some kind of archway, a visual archway, over a path, because I don't know why inherently people just feel like they want to go through that doorway. So we use that a lot. Do we know why? I don't.
I don't think generally, it's just framing. It's trying to find ways to get, like, focus the player, like, this is where you want to go. Usually it's a path, lighting, all that kind of thing. And you have the innocuous areas on the side that you just don't care about. But
so we have set this up, but our next question is, of course, what does happen next?
Yes. Well, constant iteration. We're constantly going over the areas, make sure that, does it feel good? Is it a desert? Does it feel right? Is it something we're repeating too often? If it is, we'll often change something. Like Gorgoron, was all these vents, these thermal vents that turn around about 4 months in the process, we decided it should be a jungle. And so we put a little jungle atmosphere in there. And it's just ideas that whether it's something breaking up the monotony of a zone or just coming up with something that's a little bit more interesting. So yeah, it's just part of the iteration process. As what?
Yeah, sometimes we're so sure about what we want to make. We'll have a great idea, and we'll do a concept, and we love it. And then we build the zone, and we love that. Then we run around in it, and we hate it.
We don't love it.
Sometimes you need to build something to know if you like it or not, or if it's working or not. So we do call that process iteration, and we're very proud that we're able to do this. Since I've been here, I know we've shipped probably, or actually canceled more games. I think we can still say that, canceled more games than we've actually shipped. So not only will we iterate on like little crates or little zones, sometimes entire games, we're not quite sure they meet that level. So we're doing that constantly, and we love that process. It's all part of storytelling. Will
you ever save something, an idea or
yes.
a visual image that didn't quite work in a particular level?
Absolutely.
But might work in another.
That's what makes iteration so, it's not like it's throwaway. Everything is useful in some way. We've gained a lot of story knowledge making something, and then not really getting rid of it. We'll put it in our little box.
It'll be a sub area. It'll be something we'll save for either a later expansion, maybe if it's a really good idea, or it might just be a hero piece.
You've made a lot of quests, I understand.
A few. Has anybody?
It's on 4 quests so far.
The Amber Seed quest, does anybody remember that quest? Amber Seeds? No? No, man, new people. Yes, a few quests.
Yes. What was your favorite? What surprised you when you created it?
Oh, wow. I don't know about surprises. So I also led on Suramar, which was not too long ago. You guys remember Suramar? Somewhat recent? And there we took some risks, just game mechanic-wise, the disguise mechanic, and just kind of built on that. It was a little bit iffy when I first pitched it. We weren't sure it was going to work, and this was part of that process of going in and trying, and people actually, it got some traction, and it worked out really well. Probably our poster child, I think, recently at least, for iteration would be Drustvar. And Sarah can probably talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Drustvar actually started out as a frozen wasteland. We're all big Game of Thrones fans here, so I think we were all very inspired by Beyond the Wall. And that's really how Drustvar started, and we just realized that it wasn't hitting the marks that we wanted to. It just wasn't feeling right. So we decided, we've been working on it for, I don't know, probably a month or so?
Several weeks.
Several months, yeah. And we got the call that it was not working, so we started over, and now we have the awesome creepy forest that you see today, which is great. And I think that's one of the things that really makes the Blizzard quality bar what it is that we're not afraid to start over if we have to get it right, because we want to make sure that it's the best experience and the best environment and story for everyone.
If you ever visit the campus at Blizzard, we've got our core values that are engraved in front of the campus, and one of them is commitment to quality, and that's exactly what that means, is that we'll look at it, and if it's not feeling right to us, we'll back up and we'll reimagine it. And Drustvar in particular, very different environment. It was a different story. There were a couple of camps of witches out on the periphery just for kind of a flavor hit. And those actually did resonate. So when we backed up, we reimagined the zone, and as you can see, we kind of leaned into that theme a little bit more, and it worked out for us.
It's a fun process. Why don't we go to Colin real quick, and if he can talk about all of the changes that happened in the Kaltiran continent and the...
No, that was the one zone. That was perfect right out of the gate, right?
No, yeah, it was, right.
One shot, one
And then
go.
we changed it. It's perfect every time. And then we get rid of it.
Yeah, it was a home run. Home run.
They're all home runs, man.
No, so Borealis, talking about iteration, Borealis went through a lot of changes over time, and cities in particular, when it comes to World of Warcraft, are built on a lot of blood, sweat, and tears along the way. A lot of eyes are on those all through from the beginning all the way until the end. And this example here, even this version of Borealis that I actually brought here today, this isn't even the final version of Borealis that's in the game. This is actually one of the first layouts that we did. So this doesn't even actually exist in the game. And it's just because of the feedback and the iteration that we got as we were building the space.
Now, this is an Alliance city.
Correct.
Are you drawn more to Alliance or to Horde?
So I'm actually a Horde player.
Yeah, there's more than two.
It's always fun and interesting and challenging to work on something that you're not actually, factionally aligned to. But ever since I actually started working here, I did level an Alliance character. I played through Gilneas just to get a feel for that space, because I think it's important for level designers to have a balance between both factions when you're making. Because you're not always going to be able to make Horde spaces all the time. You're going to be asked to do all kinds of different things.
Now, Colin, no one's going to hear this. Smoke bomb. They didn't hear this. Did you ever sneak a Horde graffiti in an Alliance city?
There might have been one that was then removed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Earmuffs, Jim. Earmuffs.
Yeah.
Don't listen.
He didn't hear. Okay. There was a smoke bomb.
Yeah. It was in Stormwind.
Really?
Yeah.
And he got caught.
Yeah, it got found.
Oh.
There's where Varian's tomb was. There was a Horde symbol.
Really? As if someone snuck in and painted it and then snuck out.
So I had to build Varian's tomb, which was fun because I got to go back and work on a vanilla space. I got to build out that memorial garden space, which was awesome. But I had to then also try to sneak in a little Horde symbol painted underneath, and it got found out.
Oh.
Yeah.
But it's an idea that may be saved for another level.
You never know.
Smoke bomb dissipates. No one heard that, by the way.
So going back to iteration with Borealis, like Steve was talking about with Suramar in particular, with Borealis, one of the big things that changed over time with this is we had to add a bunch of, we call them safe roads for Alliance players. We wanted to have very easy navigable ways for players to kind of get in and out of the main hub without having to, aggro a bunch of mobs along the way. And in this version, the entire city was hostile, just like it was in Suramar. And we didn't want to have you put on a mask again, so we had to come in here and basically bulldoze whole sections of the city and add in these safe avenues for players to kind of come and go.
Very interesting.
Yeah. But going back to the other point that I was talking about earlier, we already had nailed down our vibe and our theme. We had kind of nailed down the atmosphere of the space. We just had to rework the first part, which was the flow and the layout and all that kind of stuff. So.
Fascinating.
It's part of the process.
It's all part of the process we call Azeroth.
Yes.
I'm just going to stare at you for a long time, Colin.
Everybody does.
I'm still doing it, Colin.
Mr. Wren, maybe
Hello.
I can help.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
I was enjoying the aura of artistry wafting
yes.
from Colin.
I was too, and yeah, very good, very good. Let's look.
enjoy Josh's.
Let's.
Speaking of the aura of artistry.
Lots of changes happened to Underrot, and I'd love to see what Josh had to deal with some of those big changes we went through with that zone.
Yeah, the Underrot went through a lot of changes. Iteration is just super important for every step of the process, every step of the way. And Underrot was actually supposed to be a zone, and we pitched it that way several times, and it just wasn't working. And instead of forcing it, we just kind of shelved it for a little bit and then decided that it would work better as a dungeon. And so we reused those pieces to create a dungeon, and it works way better that way. Another example would be in Vol'dun. It's a lot of desert, and we were trying to think of ways to break up that desert, and we were thinking maybe we should throw in more jungle, more trees, and through all those iterations, we actually found out that hiding a little oasis in the middle of the dunes would work best for that breakup and add just that little bit of visual interest and really make it unique.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, Josh. All right, let's talk about my favorite part.
polish.
Absolutely.
It's where we actually get to tell, like, I guess, most of our story.
The finish, the end of the
Finish.
story, how you polish.
Yes. My very favorite part of the process, because now we know the size of the zone, which is very important, so we can play within those spaces. And we know the storylines, mostly, of what they're going to be. We know what quests are going to happen. We know the scale. So now is the time we can really put in that story detail, the small things that really make the difference. And it's really a time when we get to really see a small section of what the final piece is going to be. And that's very inspiring for everybody on the team, because now we have lighting coming in. We also have music, sound effects. Sound design is something you may not think about. But with sound, we can say if something is dangerous or something is cold or any sort of emotion. It's half the picture, really. So all this stuff is happening in the polished section. So Josh actually has a pretty dramatic, different part of Underrot where you can see the final version, which really we had a concept of, but was never really visualized until Josh started to do the polished section.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
This is like my favorite part as well. So I could just totally zen out doing this type of stuff. Yeah. You really get to go in and add in the small details. I know I talked about the dinosaur bones here, but it's cool to go in and add some props around it and really tell the story of how it died and why. So I'm thinking like maybe this dinosaur was down here and it got infested by this fungus and it consumed its body, and that's what happened to it, and it's dead, and now it's become part of the Underrot. So you can do that through all these little props, and you can see this is really time consuming, but it makes a huge, huge difference. Another thing, like we were mentioning, was adding lighting to the zone. You can see when I turn this off that it can really help to call out certain areas that you may want to lead the player to. So I've added a little pop of color here, and I can go in and open this tool, grab one of these lights, grab one of these lights and use it to highlight a part of the building. And so that really helps. And the very last step that I like to do is something that we call vert painting. And it helps to push these textures that we've painted down just a little bit extra. And it adds a little bit of depth. So you can see I can get a little more detail in this painting. And if I turn it off and on, you can see what a huge difference it makes. So this is without, and this is with. There's a difference.
Really fun.
And thanks.
Nice job. One of my favorite features.
And let me just show you how powerful this tool can get. Now, we definitely don't need to do this at all, but it's just a really cool option that is there.
Well, just to show how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely don't want to do this. This is really heavy-handed, but I could literally turn this terrain into any color that I want, which is really, really cool. I definitely wouldn't want to do that. That would destroy the textures, but that's how far we can take it.
Nice.
Really, it's just to bring out the depth. Sarah has a slightly different process right now. She's working with the Arathi Basin, which was already kind of laid out, so we didn't have to worry about flow, the timing between zones, or between POIs, and also the scale of POIs. She had to come in and kind of up-res it, show how we do things now, what's the new style, what's the new take on how we not only use more props, but also use a lot better look. Evolve the look quite a bit. Go ahead, sir.
Wow us with your magic.
So, really a main issue that we wanted to address was what makes Arathi feel like Arathi, and how do we keep that feeling? And so we did work with the environment artists, the prop artists, the WMO artists, which are the ones who build our buildings, and everyone was all hands-on with making sure that we could take this to the quality bar that it deserves, because it's such a staple, and we really, really wanted to keep that same feel, but take it to the next level.
Now, I know that you work a lot in computer. Do you prefer designing first with paper and pencil, or always computer?
We do a lot of paper and pencil. Sometimes, if you can't really think of what to do, it's good just to get in the editor and just start throwing props at things and trying to figure out what's working, what's not, what you're going for. So that's really, it's a super fun thing to get to do, a really fun process to get to experience.
When you've done that, what surprise did you find? Did it ever lead to a surprise that you did not expect when you were just going from your mind, just designing?
Oh yeah, all the time. And the really cool thing about our team, I think Blizzard as a whole in general, is how collaborative our work is. And so every week we, as level designers, have a meeting and we show what we're doing and we get feedback from each other and we come up with the craziest, coolest ideas that just end up completely sending you in a different direction, but it's the best direction that you could have gone in. So it's really, really awesome being able to be surrounded and supported by such incredible peers and friends to help you get through that.
And that is reflected in the game. It is
yeah.
a game in which you meet peers
Hopefully.
and friends,
Mhm.
and yet you all are that.
Right.
So it goes through the computer into the gamer.
Absolutely.
It connects all of us.
Absolutely
well done.
does.
Well done indeed.
Thank you, Sarah.
It's really interesting to see. We come out, like you said, we come up with these concept art pieces that shape what we think we want to see in these zones. We come up with demo zones and everything's feeling right, but a lot of times we'll come to these meetings and we'll see what we've kind of carved out, and that sparks better ideas, and sometimes we'll head off in a different direction, and it's important that that's a safe place to work, right? Because we're all kind of pouring out our souls and like, hey, is this cool?
Sometimes it's unexpected, though. Like, we'll be in a meeting with Alex, and he'll be like, wow, I really like that. What if we do this? And it's over here, and we're like, man, we got to throw away some work.
Start over.
But it's a really good idea.
Exactly.
And we're
Sometimes
like,
it's a ton of work, but it's a better idea, and the best idea always wins. And that's the magic. That's when it feels so great.
The best idea wins. Ego is out the door.
Exactly.
Oh, you can't, right. Nothing is personal. The work we do here is not your own. It's what we're representing for the game and what represents the story the best way, right? If you felt things were personal, and I tell this to students a lot, your work is not your personal baby up there. We need to be able to tear that up and say something is no good. It's not that you're no good,
right?
Or you're whatever. The work could be better, and it's going to get better if you allow yourself to listen to those sorts of criticisms, right?
It's one of the things working with new designers too, right? It really is that personal, especially I think with Quest, where you're crafting these words and this story to try to go along with these amazing environments. And we play these. It's important to know, we talked about creation of zones and all these iterations, and as leadership, we look at the zones and we play through the content at every stage. And we will give notes. And those notes sometimes, again,
Absolutely.
it's not that you did a bad job. It's just, hey, maybe it's a great story, but it's not being told in a wow way.
Right, it could be improved. Plus, we're hoping other designers are going through and looking through our zones and being inspired for little points of interest, small little stories that get little microscopic things. We want everyone to be inspired by every little corner.
It's important to know, because we get a lot of people that are just fantastic storytellers or really good writers, for example, right? But being a quest designer on World of Warcraft isn't just that. Another one of our core values is gameplay first, and our quest designers are the guys that actually go in, they place the monsters and the quest givers, and all those interactions that you see are handcrafted by these guys. And
that's a good point. Sorry, I wanted to, everything we do, nothing is procedural. You see how they work. This is how they build the game. Everything is placed by hand. Everything is done by hand, and I think it's important. Sorry, another thing I want to mention before we run out of time,
We do have the question to pose at the end.
I understand. But we talk about storytelling, and I wanted to say that this latest expansion really represents the type of storytelling we had always hoped we could do in World of Warcraft. When you think about it, we have these pre-rendered cinematics, which are fantastic. These in-game cinematics by Taryn Gregory's team. All of our little storylines that the Quest guys can do, little cinematics. The storytelling that our level designers are doing. Everything is related. If you remember our old cinematics from the beginning, they didn't really have a whole lot to do with our story. They were really pretty, but they didn't move along our...
I'm Day 9, and I feel obligated to end this sentence with StarCraft 2. Now, I want to start things off by just asking you, Tim, what has been going on in the wonderful world of StarCraft 2? And I will give you the power of the wonderful slide control to tell us about it.
Well, thank you. It has been a big year for StarCraft 2. And we actually started the year at the Olympics, doing the lead-in to the Winter Games. And that was a very exciting tournament that Scarlett took the trophy for. Go Scarlett. Yeah. And then we also celebrated the 20th anniversary of StarCraft. And that was something you helped us celebrate, so thank you.
Yes!
And that is just very exciting for us. 20 years for the original StarCraft, 8 years now for StarCraft 2. Such a tremendous legacy. And I'm not going to talk about all the content that's up on the slide, but we released Tychus as a commander. We had another war chest. It's been a great year.
What are some of the features that you haven't gotten to yet that you'd like to?
There are a couple of things that we are still working on. So co-op leaderboards is something that we've been exploring and we think could really add depth and longevity to co-op gameplay. So that's something we're still looking at. And we also want to support video streams in the game so that you can watch StarCraft 2 esports right in the client. So those are things that we're still working on.
Great. Yeah. Dude, excited to hear about it. You know, one of the things that you just mentioned, the war chest, always have so many goodies in it. Ryan, I was wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about war chest number 4. Give to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are trying to get another war chest out by the end of the year. We're really excited about it, and we're going to be doing a couple of things differently this time. So for anyone unfamiliar, the War Chest is a program where we have an event that players can purchase admission to unlock cool rewards by playing the game. So far, we've always done unit skins, so you could reskin your army, the Marine, the Marauder, that type of thing. But this time around, we're going to be doing building skins, which is something that... people have been asking for it, so you're going to be able to kind of complete your set and get everything matching in your army, so that should be pretty exciting. But that's not actually the only thing that we're doing differently. We're also going to be making it so that you can unlock war chest rewards by watching StarCraft 2 games on Twitch as well, instead of just playing the game. We know that there's a lot of people out there who love StarCraft 2 esports and love watching that content, and we want to make sure that you have a way to directly support StarCraft 2 esports in the war chest, but still get to unlock all the content the way you want.
How many of you stay up really late and screw up your sleep schedules to watch GSL? Anyone other than me? Yes? Good? Good. You're going to get rewarded for that now. Isn't that great? It's fantastic. Now, you mentioned, and I've gotten the chance to see just a little taste of it, the building skins. Rob, please show everyone. Please show us the building skins.
So we have here a few quick pieces of art. Now, these are not final, but I want to just show it to you what we have. We're going to have, for the Terran, the Special Forces. I actually really like these guys. They are going to be very similar to what you played with in the Nova Covert Ops missions. They're going to be a little more tactical, a little more carbon fiber, maybe a little more LEDs. I think they're going to be pretty cool in multiplayer specifically.
Yeah, no, I see the really sharp blue neon that, you know, Nova's known for in her costume.
Absolutely. And then next up, we got the Forged Protoss, which for me, this is Alrak's army, the Tal'Darim. So these guys are going to be awesome in multiplayer. You know, really bright neon, well, the bright red colors, which
Yeah, I was curious about, because like in the art, we know that Tal'Darim generally has that really dark, rich red. Is that going to be in every single model, or I mean, that's typically where the team color is?
So we're working on this right now, and our current idea, and I think it's the one we're going to stick with, is that that's going to all be team colors. So you can choose a very strong team color. You can pick red if you want, or pick whatever you like.
Oh, so good. And I feel like you're going to talk about the third race now, Rob. I have an intuition about me. Talk to me about Zerg.
So this next one I'm pretty happy with. Here's just a quick sketch of what we had, the first piece of concept art. It's going to be the Simulant Zerg. So in the last War Chest, we made these awesome Mecha Zerg available as units, and now we're actually going to make them as buildings, and this is what we're working on right now.
Oh, it's so good, Rob. That is so awesome.
So this is actually a little bit of work, and we were a little scared about making this at first, but we're hard at work and going to make this ready for the next War Chest.
God, that is so fascinating. Like, I'm curious in terms of these types of designs, the kinds of challenges you have making sure that things still read clearly. I know that with units, there's a lot of motion in combat. Is it easier with structures to do these types of skins?
So in this case, what we've decided to do is to make sure that the profile is pretty much the same as the regular Zerg. So pretty much every spire or a tentacle is now replaced with a mechanical wing or a spike.
I mean, do you find it challenging to be able to explore that creatively, or does it still feel like a pretty open space for you?
Well, this actually was a pretty exciting challenge. Initially, the artists were a little scared, simply because of the amount of work. But as we started working on it, it's probably the most fun thing we've done in a long time. I mean,
so awesome.
We're actually having a lot of fun making this art.
Once again, this is going to be in the War Chest 4. Now,
Next, I was going to say I was going to hand it over here to Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin. I understand that there is a new co-op commander in the works.
Indeed, you are right, Sean. Our newest co-op commander is going to be Zeratul.
Yes.
And Zeratul is very exciting for us because he's one of the most iconic characters, both from StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, we had a challenge with Zeratul in that there's already a Nerazim commander that exists in co-op. So our challenge was to differentiate Zeratul enough from Vorzin so that he both played and felt differently.
Yeah, so, I mean, talk to me about how you overcame that challenge, making Zeratul feel both separate enough from Vorzun and still unique and kick-ass in his own right.
Right, so we had to really dig deep into who Zeratul is, other than the fact that he's a Dark Templar. So in order to do that, we played through the campaign and really looked to the missions he played a large role in, and also the lore surrounding those missions. So, first of all, we knew that Zeratul had to be a controllable hero on the battlefield. And in addition to that, we knew that he needed to have a small but very powerful elite army because he was often featured in insurgent-style missions in the campaign. But, Sean, the rest of what Zeratul is today came much later in the design process.
Show me.
All right,
Show me
I will,
right
Sean.
now, okay?
I will. So, throughout the campaign, Zeratul looked to the wisdom of the Xel'Naga for guidance. So we really leaned into the Xel'Naga concept as far as we could. So what we came up with is Xel'Naga enhancements to very traditional Protoss units. So Sean, I have a job for you. I know you're a big fan of the Immortal and how it moves and dances. Show us.
Oh, you mean like this? Yeah? Is this the Immortal that you're talking about?
Well, Sean, with Xel'Naga enhancements.
Show me.
Immortals can turn into Xel'Naga enforcers, which have learned to tilt their cannons up and shoot air units.
Does this mean that I actually can be the newbie I've always wanted to be and build an only immortal army and shoot air and ground?
Well, Sean, in addition to your voice pack, you are now in co-op commanders.
Yes. All right, what else with the Xel'Naga? Talk to me more about the way that the Xel'Naga influences Zeratul's design.
Well, not only do we have a lot of Xel'Naga influences, we also have a lot of prophecy influences. In the StarCraft 2 campaign, Zeratul often was searching for prophecy, searching for Xel'Naga artifact fragments. So we really incorporated that into Zeratul's design. For the first time ever, Zeratul will be able to use his prophetic vision ability in order to find procedurally generated artifact fragments on the map.
So is this sort of like having an additional mission objective for each map, where just if you're Zeratul, you go out and you find the fragments, right?
Right. Some of the feedback we've gotten is players would maybe like to see more side missions in co-op. So Zeratul, in a way, has his own unique side missions. And if he completes these artifact fragment quests in a way, he can gain additional power-ups to both his units, his call-downs, and also himself.
Yeah, and so the way that these are placed around the map, is it just like generally in difficult locations? Is it like depending on the difficulty?
So actually, we tested around with a lot of different variables there. At first, we tried for each map, we'll select exactly where they are. We also played around with they can be all over the map, but we found that each had its own challenges.
Yeah.
So we ended up with something midway. With each artifact fragment, they can spawn in a given area, but they'll also be limited in that they can't spawn right in the middle of an enemy base.
Now, I want to ask, as someone who loves Karax, talk to me about the top bar abilities, these global commander-esque abilities. What's in store for Zeratul?
Well, a lot of our commanders have these very powerful global abilities that you can use anywhere on the map. But for the first time, Zeratul will be able to customize and choose his own top bar abilities, as we can see right here.
Now, walk me through some of these, like what some of the more basic ones are that people can expect.
Right, so as we can see here, at the start of the game, you'll be able to select one of 3 legendary Legion abilities. And with each artifact fragment you find, you'll be able to select 1 additional ability. So,
so that's kind of how the tech tiers work. You
Right,
start
right.
0, and then if you go 1, 2, 3, got it.
it's kind of like a very different style of progression in the game.
Right.
And I can show you some of the legendary Legion abilities right now.
Well, then let's do that. I think that's a great idea.
Let's do it. All right. So these legendary Legion abilities are kind of inspired from the campaign itself. In the campaign, Zeratul had a very curious habit of finding allies who are more than willing to sacrifice themselves for the greater good. So with these abilities, Zeratul will be able to summon Protoss units or Protoss legions from other factions that will fight for Zeratul, but you won't be able to directly control them, but you'll be able to direct them.
So it literally is like proper having an extra ally on the battlefield with you, so you can still focus on some of the nuanced control of Zeratul and Zeratul forces.
Right, that's, I think, exactly what we're going for, and we can see some of them right now. Zarya and her Void Rays have the ability to, they're Void Rays, so they're more of an all-around choice. Tebris and his Zealot Legion are good for your AoE needs, while Sedarith and his Dark Archon squad are great for dealing with a lot of powerful enemies.
I wanted to ask about the most powerful ones here.
Okay.
It's always fun to have a little carrot to work towards. What are these tier 3 most legendary abilities?
As we can see, we have the Avatar of Form and the Avatar of Essence. We wanted Zeratul to feel very powerful once he collects all 3 artifact fragments. So once he does, you'll be able to summon these ultimate constructs of ultimate Xel'Naga power. So first, we have the Avatar of Form. The Avatar of Form represents the Xel'Naga ideal of great psionic potential. So he'll have a lot of powerful psionic-based abilities like upgraded versions of Psionic Storm, Psionic Blast, all sorts.
That is so sweet. This is my commentary on this.
Well, in case that's not your cup of tea, we also have the Avatar of Essence, which features the Xel'Naga concept of evolution. So he'll be able to buff your units and also devolve your Amon's units into lower evolutionary tiers.
So this Xel'Naga construct, does it function like the original legendary units you were talking about in that you can't control them?
So these guys, because they're Xel'Naga based, because they're part of Zeratul, you'll be able to exactly control exactly where they go.
Oh my god, awesome. Yes, I appreciate you so much.
Co-op!
I'm really excited to get the chance to actually play. I mean, I say this every chance I can, but if any of you are new to StarCraft 2 and are looking for a way to hop in, maybe you've been watching the StarCraft 2 esports, I cannot recommend Commander enough. I pretty much consider myself a try-hard, right? A competitive, like one-on-one type person. But still, in the last 18 months, 2 years, I have done so much co-op just because it's so fun to play with friends. It's just a really nice entry point, so I strongly encourage all of you to check it out. And of course, I'm excited to play Zeratul. Now, speaking of competitive one-on-one, I'm a master of transitions. That's why I get hired to do this. Skip, hey, talk to me about who you are and what's coming for StarCraft 2 Balance.
So I'm Michael Scipione, but I usually go by Skip, as you pointed out here.
Yeah.
I do I'm representing the Versus Design team here today. We're going to talk about the big patch. We have a big design patch. We did one last year, and we have one this year.
Well, talk to me a little bit about how you approach design, because I know it's not just tweaking a unit here that feels strong or weak and so on and so forth.
So yeah, we have a couple of big design goals when we go into one of these patches. This one in particular, we wanted to look at the end game. We wanted to look at a lot of the 6 supply units. We wanted to look at bringing up some of the races that may have felt like they're weaker in late game, but we don't want them to all play the same. They need to have their own flavor. They need to still each feel like each distinct races, but we wanted to make them a little bit more equal.
And when you talk about end game units, you know, often you'll see early game units like Marines, Marauders in a late game Terran composition. You really are referring to those like highest tier units that you're looking at, is that right?
Yeah, we were looking at both what people are doing in the late game, but especially looking at like all the 6 supply units. Ultralisk, Colossus, Battlecruiser, those kinds of things.
Right.
We also wanted to look at upgrades. Upgrades also play a big role in the late game. They can also play a big role in the mid game, or if you're a Neo Steel enthusiast, You can always build that whenever you feel like it.
Who here loves Neo Steel Frame? Yeah. Yeah, you guys are going to get a treat, apparently. Yeah.
So with that one, we are actually merging it in with the building armor upgrade, but keeping the building armor upgrades cost and upgrade time. So it'll be Neo Steel armor, so you get as part of it. So we're also looking at areas where we can encourage more of the mid and late game encounters.
Yeah.
So early game is good, and we also want to encourage that as well. There should be clearly strategies that are good there. Yeah, we also want to make sure that you have ways to transition in the later game.
Right, right. Yeah, because when you say encounter, early game, I know that there's a lot of Adept and Oracle and Reaper harass. Are you looking for more harassment type things, or are you trying to just encourage more general conflict? What does it mean to have more encounters in mid and late game?
It's more of general conflict and the feeling that you have the tools to cause those conflicts. If you're too scared of your opponent's mid-game or late game, you might feel that you're constrained into just, oh, I have to do this early game, otherwise I don't have a chance.
Oh, to avoid that, I harass once and then pull back and take 4 bases and chill till I'm maxed sort of thing.
Well, you can do that if you would like to.
That's what I like to do, man.
We also wanted to look at reintroducing some exciting compositions from the past. So we wanted to encourage more Mutalisk play and TVZ. And we wanted to look into bringing back the old Cyclone from before 3.8. That's actually part of some of our highlights that we have with the upcoming patch.
Yeah, so talk to me about some of the specific changes that you're looking at and how those connect back to some of those design goals.
So, for example, with the Cyclone, the current Cyclone is very good early mid, and we want to see if we could reintroduce the old 3.8 version, or pre-3.8 version, where it was more of an assassin tool, which was very good in the mid and late game. And we started seeing some really interesting uses from it in the Pro Series before it was changed before. And we want to try reintroducing it to see if we can get some of that back.
Oh, awesome. And I understand that the Battlecruiser, or excuse me, I understand that the Tempest also has had some additional changes to it.
Oh, we do. We actually have a little video up ahead that we can get to.
Okay, all right.
Why don't we, but you mentioned the Battlecruiser.
Oh, yeah.
Let's take a look at the Battlecruiser.
Yeah, because, I mean, this is so nice. If you have ever been the Battlecruiser on the top, it is so painful to try to accelerate and decelerate. It requires a lot of APM just to keep pushing the Battlecruiser forward.
Yeah, so with the Battlecruiser, we're looking into making it a move and shoot unit. Right now we have in multiplayer the Phoenix and sort of the Cyclone that can also do that. But this one can fire up and down. It makes it very dangerous to just sort of encounter it and then try and pull away. You have to really commit to it to fight it.
Right. Now, when you say move and shoot, I know the Phoenix can pretty much swivel as it's firing. Does the Battlecruiser still need to face, or can you be retreating and firing from behind?
It can fire backwards, so you have to watch out even if you're trying to pursue a Battlecruiser.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So what about the Tempest?
What about it, Skip?
So the Tempest, we're doing more of a numeric change. So while the Tempest gun will remain the same, it's a long-range, very powerful anti-warship weapon.
Yeah.
We wanted to look into making it a little bit more flexible and a little bit different than the carrier, more so than now. So it's faster, it costs a little less, and the supply went down by 1, but the health also went down.
Oh, right. Yes. Because it kind of felt like you had to commit. Like if your opponent was building Broodlords or something like that, you'd have to actually invest quite a bit in terms of time and resources just to get 2 or 3 out.
Right. And so we wanted to look into making it a little bit more also micro-friendly. So then we also have our changes with the Zerg. So one of the big ones we did is the Nidus Worm. And one of the main things we changed was it is now no longer invincible while it's unburrowing. But it's still in the ground, so we decided, well, we can increase its armor as well. We've seen in the past people just pull workers to battle it. And we want it to be more, give it a little bit more defense while it's underground, but it loses that armor once it pops out.
That's really in line with a lot of the other Zerg units, that when they're eggs, they'll have boosted armor during construction, they pop out, a little squishier to target.
Yeah, we also made it cheaper, because one of the big feedback we got from pro players of using it late game was, oh, it costs a little too much for what it does, so we've reduced the cost to see if we can promote more of the late game usage of it as well.
And this makes a lot of sense with what you were talking about with trying to encourage the mid and late game encounters. If it's, obviously you get so much spread in Legacy of the Void multiplayer over the map, that if it was easy to get picked off by workers, it would be kind of trivial. But now, if you're able to watch the minimap a lot and split your army, that's how you're going to have to answer that kind of threat.
Right, and you're rewarded a little bit more when you see it. Like if you just dump a worm in the middle of your opponent's base, they clearly can just blast it with their army units. But because it's cheaper, it rewards you a bit more for being a little bit more sneaky.
That's awesome. Well, what about balance going forward? Because I know that balance is always evolving with the way new strategies are emerging, with the way map design is changing, with trends in gameplay. How do you see long-term design?
So with long-term design in regards to the future, we're still evaluating it. This hasn't gone out completely to the public, and once the pros get their hands on it, especially, we'll be able to see how people at the very highest level are able to make use of these changes, and we'll make adjustments accordingly. Much like last year, we have a lot of the same goals going forward. Big patches aren't the goal, they're only as warranted.
Right.
And part of that is we want to respect player time investment. When players get really good at the game, they want to be able to say, okay, I understand the meta, and now I can counter what you're doing because I understand what your meta is. And that's like a big part of StarCraft is knowing, okay, here's what I want to do, here's what they're going to do, and here's how I'm going to respond to it.
Right. Well, that's awesome. I really look forward to the changes and getting the chance to try out Nidus worms that are much cheaper. Make me so happy.
They're really fun.
Thank you, Skip. Now, Oriel, we're going to pass the baton to you, but before we get to talk about DeepMind, after this, we're going to be doing a Q&A, and there's a microphone, I believe, somewhere over here. I can't see it because these lights are really bright, but I have confidence that there's a microphone over there, and we'd love to invite you up there to ask questions to our lovely panelists. Now, Oriel, please talk to us about what's been going on with DeepMind.
Right. So it's been quite an exciting couple of years. 2 years ago, we announced that we would collaborate with Blizzard to open or release the StarCraft 2 as an environment for building artificial intelligence. And last year, we actually released it, and it's been an amazing experience to see the community come together. There's a very nice Discord channel where people sort of do all kinds of things in StarCraft that is maybe not what you would expect you could do, like building bots and iterating and having a ladder for AIs and so on. So that's been great to see. And then after the release, we sort of start working a bit more on like other aspects of the game. But first, we wanted to get the release right?
Yeah, I mean, it must have been a really interesting 2 years, like going from the very first day trying to even approach the StarCraft 2 problem to now. I mean, what are some of the big highlights in your eyes?
Right, so I mean, we started from sort of just understanding what is needed to expose StarCraft 2 to a computer, not to a human. So that was required quite a bit of work. And what's been sort of exciting for DeepMind, right, we sort of have a bit of history on using video games for researching artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And what's been super nice is that StarCraft kind of ticks a lot of boxes of difficulty of previously sort of successfully declared, solved games, or at least been played at very high human level, right? So we started with Atari, which there's like fairly simple old games, but it was still an impressive achievement when we did that 3 or 4 years ago. And then, as people might remember, 2 years ago, we beat the world champion at Go. But obviously, Go is a game where you, for instance, see the whole board, whereas in StarCraft, you do have to go out and seek for information, right? So that aspect in particular is going to be one of the challenging things to deal with for the current AI technology.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious, because in a game like Go, there's 361 board positions, so it's really clear what a move is. You just place the stone. But when it comes to something like StarCraft, I mean, how do you even define what an action is that a computer might want to take, or that a player would want to take?
Right, so for this, we took a very sort of human-centric approach, right? We look at how you play the game. I was a gamer back in the day. Actually, I played quite a bit of StarCraft 1. And we just kind of tried to emulate this idea of mouse clicks and keyboard clicks and dragging rectangles across the screen and so on. So when we defined the API with Blizzard, we tried to really follow closely what someone playing with a keyboard and a mouse would look like. Not much so like, I mean, we also have an interface that is more like programming. But what we care about is playing like a human, because that's what kind of is the challenge, like the challenges of StarCraft, like span of attention and like economy of like where you have your camera, micro versus macro, all these is much harder when you expose it with the human API, as we call it.
Well, what's the progress been like so far?
Right, so as I was saying, the first things we kind of did and open sourced was this mini games, which were kind of pieces of StarCraft, really, that any player should kind of master, right? So this is simple things like moving units around, moving groups of units around, also dealing with economy, like so building buildings to mine more minerals or building as large an army as you can in a limited time span. And since the release, we actually have gone quite far in these mini games, and we have essentially achieved what I would call very competent human performance, like maybe Grandmaster level or so. But there are obviously extremely limited sets of things in StarCraft, right?
And is this to just get a feel for it, to make sure that the framework that you're functioning with is causing proper learning to happen?
Exactly. So we learned a lot, right? A lot of the difficulties of the action space, the mouse clicks, was exposed thanks to this. And so it was a very good first stepping stone. And also for the community, it's a bit less daunting to play these mini games than to play the full 1 versus 1. Because if you do try to play 1 versus 1, I'll show you sort of when we released, we also attempted to see what would happen if you play StarCraft, like the full game.
Yeah, what does 1v1 look like?
So a year ago, it looked a bit like this, which... So this was an agent that was trained mostly to imitate humans. And you can see it's kind of moving the camera a little bit, building random buildings and random locations. It's pretty, I mean, it's quite fun to see for a little bit, but it's not going to even produce units sometimes. So it's very limited, and it's what it was like maybe a year ago. But that was kind of the simplest approach, was to take human data and try to imitate how humans play the game. And that was what came out, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine it's really hard to start learning from scratch, because there's millions of different combinations of click and drag and release, and then what button you press in what order.
Right. And just remember, we are playing the game by looking at the screen. We don't see the pixels exactly. We see kind of an ASCII version of StarCraft, so much very different from the cool art that we saw. It's kind of the opposite way. It's kind of ugly, but the computers understand it. But really that between the observations being the raw imagery and the actions being so high dimensional, millions of actions that you need to decide absolutely every second, the game is quite difficult to play.
And what evolved from this? Did the AIs learn that cannon rushing is the most overpowered strategy in StarCraft?
So I'll show you a bit of like what kind of went through in the last few months. So the first sort of time we actually scaled this up and played against bots, right? So other bots that are built in the game. As we know, many of us started playing against one bot and then eventually 7 and whatnot. So surprisingly, perhaps, we trained an agent to play against these bots, and it decided to do a very simple strategy.
Look, it's Naniwa.
So, agents obviously are lazy if they can, but this agent in particular is not just simply attacking with its probes. It's actually doing some micro, essentially exploiting the built-in AI. And this is not the easiest built-in AI. This actually is Cheat Insane, which is the hardest AI there is. So just with its probes, it actually manages to beat the hardest AI in the game. Obviously not in a very elegant way. It's gonna finish, yes. So this tells you a lot about the game, and also tells you a lot about these bots that people do. They're quite exploitable, right? They're doing single strategies. You might not account for certain variability in how you build buildings and so on. So it's quite difficult to play, and for humans it's so natural, but for these agents it's quite a struggle.
I'm now getting concerned about queuing up against any of you on the ladder going, I have a build order, look at this.
Well, try it at your own risk, but anyways, after a little bit of training and refinement, we started seeing a bit more like normal play, let's say.
Yeah.
So the next video shows sort of an agent that is actually playing somewhat. It's perhaps not the best at macro or micro, but what's happening in this game is you notice there's a pylon that is from the enemy. So this agent is being cannon rushed. And
Blizzard. But first, let's talk about how the panel works. We're going to start with introductions, and as we go along, I'll share interesting facts about each of the folks here on stage. After that, we'll move on to some discussion. We've prepared a question for each of our panelists, which we hope you'll find interesting. Then we'll go over to you, our audience, here at BlizzCon for some Q&A. So, let's get started. Panelists, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, BlizzCon. I'm Rochelle Davis. I'm a senior software engineer on a new project, and I've been at Blizzard for about 7.5 years.
Rochelle was an original member of the Hearthstone team. Yeah, yeah. Good. All right. Rochelle was an original member of the Hearthstone team. She saw the game from prototype to launch and through its first years as a live game. Fun fact, she didn't learn to code until she was 19, having spent most of her time in musical theater. She loves doing outreach, especially when it supports future engineering talent and diversity in tech and gaming.
My name is Bruce Wilkie. I'm a principal software engineer on the Overwatch team. I work on the engine and graphics rendering technology.
Some of you, yeah, let's hear it for Bruce. Some of you may recognize Bruce's name from the Overwatch forums. Bruce is a champion for all of the different PC specs from min to max for Overwatch. He's frequently helping players out with crashes and performance issues. He's also a specialist on rendering tech for Overwatch heroes such as skin, hair, armor, eyes, and he also works on the tech that enables the ambient light, reflections, and shadows in the amazing Overwatch environments.
So my name is Diane Cochran. I'm a lead engineer on a new project, and I've been with Blizzard for 8 years now.
So in her time here at Blizzard, Diane helped put together our company's approach to continuous integration. She was also a lead engineer for the Battle.net desktop app, Blizzard's public API platform, and our authentication and authorization infrastructure. She moved from web and mobile to work on a new project as lead software engineer.
I'm Colin Murray. I'm a lead software engineer on the World of Warcraft team, and I've been with Blizzard for about 23 years.
It's 23 years, folks. So Colin has written code for Diablo, StarCraft, Warcraft 3, and every version of World of Warcraft. He has also worked on nearly every major system in the WoW codebase. Some highlights are the movement system, the object manager, the model rendering and animation system, and the streaming file system. He heads a small team of engineers who work on low-level backbone systems, and they're always working hard to make sure the game is running as smoothly as possible.
Hi, my name is Sarah Dobler. I am a technical lead on Battle.net tools, and I've been with Blizzard for almost 14 years.
So folks, Sarah started at Blizzard as a game master shortly after WoW launched and worked towards a position in development by building internal tooling and taking database classes on the side. She was an early member of the web team where she worked on Blizzard.com, the support side, and the original WoW Armory, and the platform that provides content for our modern community sites. She's currently leading up the tools team on Battle.net. Her team's products include the recently launched Blizzard Battle.net Developer Portal, as well as a number of web applications that power the Battle.net platform behind the scenes. Okay, now that introductions are done, let's go to some questions that we've prepared for the panel. My first question is for Rochelle. Rochelle, what is the difference between prototype code and production code?
That is a great question. And I would say that the biggest difference between prototype code and production code is the questions that you're asking when you're in each mindset. So when you're doing prototype code, what you're going to be looking for is finding the fun. At Blizzard, we have a core value that's gameplay first, and that's kind of where we start with all of our games, with all of our new projects as well. What's the fun of this game? What's the core loop? So we look for finding the fun, and that means we're not really interested at the beginning in how is this going to be performant? What's the perfect tech stack look like? How do we scale this to millions of users? Those aren't really prototyping questions. When I first started on Hearthstone, the game was not announced. We were called Pegasus back then. And we were still finding the fun. We were doing a Flash prototype at the time. And it wasn't about how is this going to scale, what is this going to look like when we launch. It was about how does Hearthstone feel for the players and what's fun about it. And then over time, we found that we were getting that right on the money. We were finding the notes that were fun in Hearthstone, so much so that we had to ask certain parts of the company to play less and work more, including our own team. So we actually started transitioning at that point into asking different questions. This doesn't happen overnight. This happens gradually. But those questions started to be more like, how do we scale this to multiple servers, multiple modes, millions of users, hopefully? And that is when you know you're kind of entering a production mindset. This doesn't mean that your prototype code and your production code need to be in totally different languages or code bases. There's other ways to transition. But the questions that you're asking start to change, and that's how you know that you're ready for production.
Awesome. Thank you, Rochelle. Yeah. OK, on to Bruce. So Bruce, Ash and Bob are the latest additions to the hero roster in Overwatch. How does someone working on the rendering engine help a new hero join the action?
Ash is a great addition to the hero lineup in Overwatch. Hopefully, if you're here at BlizzCon, you've had a chance to try her out in the demo area or at home, seen some videos. It came up yesterday, I think, in the What's Next panel, but Ash was very technically challenging because there is actually, her ult is an entire new hero. It's Bob. Bob is just like a player. You can buff Bob, you can heal Bob, you can, anything you can do to a player, you can do to Bob. And so when the designers came to us and said, you know, we want her to have this kit, they were very adamant about that. You know, we had to actually work a lot with them to figure out how we were going to make that happen. One of the ways that we do that is when all heroes in Overwatch have a memory budget, and you know they can only take so much memory because we have to run on min-spec machines and high-end machines at high frame rates. So Ash and Bob have to fit in the same budget that something like Tracer has to fit in. So to do that, when you see Ash, when you see Bob, you aren't always seeing the same versions of Ash and Bob. In Hero Select, for example, you see a very high-quality Ash because it's just Ash and Bob's not there, and she's right up close to you, and you want to see high quality. When you see Ash and Bob in a highlight intro or in the hero gallery, you see a lower quality version because there's more stuff going on, there's different things around. And finally, when you see them in gameplay, you're seeing a different version yet. The textures are more compressed on Bob, so he'll fit into memory. The polygon count is lower, so the frame rate can stay high. And we do all this so that people on the min specs, they can play the game. People on mid-range machines can play the game at a higher frame rate. So everyone can enjoy our game, not just people with high-end machines.
Awesome. Thank you, Bruce. And now, Diane, you've had an interesting journey to becoming a software developer. Can you share with us how you got into the field?
Sure. Wanted to bring this up just because it's a little different than most people. I had actually wanted to be an aeronautical engineer the entire time that I was growing up. And it happened to be in about the summer of '97. I had a friend of mine sit me down in front of a computer and have me play a video game. And that video game was Diablo. And as I was playing through, every time that I would reload the game, because I was terrible at it, I started to notice that all the levels were different. And it blew my mind. I was like, how in the world can you make a game that does something like this? So not knowing anything, I go out and I buy a book on computer repair. Get home, start reading through it, and go, oh, crap. From there, I started picking up other things that got me closer and closer and closer to actually becoming a software developer. I'd pick up a book on Visual Basic and learn how to make calculators in it. Went, oh, well, video games use C++, so let me grab a C++ book and start writing a Shadowrun character generator out of it. And then finally, it was like, oh, OpenGL. OpenGL is the thing. And I poured my way through the OpenGL Red book, like learning everything that I needed to do, and slowly started doing things like building a graphics engine and doing other things. Now, of course, this was happening, as I said, in the late '90s, and as a number of people know, that's when the .com boom happened. So I ended up getting my start by moving out to Los Angeles and getting into web development, and that's where I spent most of my career. And that's the reason why, like in the intro, a lot of those things are working on infrastructure and the websites and everything else. But I'm now at the point where I get to spend like literally every day coming in to do the thing that Blizzard, so many years ago, got me inspired to become a software developer over. And for me, that's just, it's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you, Diane. Next is Colin. Colin, how does the World of Warcraft team manage finding and fixing software bugs with such a complex game?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked.
Thank you.
So we have a lot of customers, a lot of people online. And as you might expect, occasionally some of them encounter a failure. Some of you may have seen the Blizzard error dialog pop up. You put in your little message and you hit send to Blizzard. So how do we collect all of those and how do we sort through them all and make sense of it? It can be a fairly large amount of data. So back in 2004, we just had one guy in a Perl script, and that's how we sorted through it. As you might expect, it didn't work so well. So we started to develop a system for sorting through these errors and aggregating them and making sense of them in order to better prioritize our efforts. So now we have a system called exceptions that's able to categorize the errors and prioritize them for us so that we can tell which errors we should work on first. So we can collect a crash log and a dump file. The dump file allows us to load it into the debugger and see the error as though it happened right there at our desk at that moment. And in the exceptions interface, we can see all of the various pieces of data that we've collected, like what was your locale, like what language were you playing the game in, what kind of machine were you running on? Was it a particular flavor of Intel PC? What graphics card and exact model was it? Occasionally, there are patterns that emerge from these things, and that helps us focus our efforts. So using all of this, it allows us to better focus our efforts so that we can prioritize the errors that are affecting the most number of users and help people get back playing as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Okay, folks. Before I move on to Sarah, we're going to get to our Q&A section in just a moment. And I'd like to invite members of our audience who have questions for the panel to start lining up, queuing up on the mics that we have set up on the floor here. Okay, Sarah. We recently launched the Blizzard Battle.net Developer Portal, where community developers can go to consume game data via APIs. As a member of that team, can you talk about how community API support got started?
The very first community API was the World of Warcraft Armory. Back when we created it, we chose a front-end tech stack of XML XSLT, which meant that we were delivering the XML data separately from the XSLT style sheet. Now, we had intended to release a website, but a really interesting phenomenon occurred. The majority of our traffic wasn't human. It was automated. It was API developers that were consuming the XML character profiles, and they were using them to power fan sites and client applications and signature generators and just about everything you could think of. So we geeked out about that. And then we started making decisions that were intended to keep the API developers going. When it became time to actually retire the original Armory, we were adamant that we did not want to move on from the Armory as a website without also having a replacement for it as an API. And to that end, we actually left the old Armory running alongside the new World of Warcraft community website solely for the purpose of serving character profile XMLs. And in the meantime, we worked on the first World of Warcraft REST API. The REST API exposed the same data that the Armory had, and it had some of the same maintainability problems that the Armory did. But what made it special was that it was our first standalone intentional API offering for the community. We wanted to level up from there, and this is where Diane was actually involved during her web and mobile days. The web team went to the game teams, and we agreed upon protobuf contracts to which they could push their game data to us. And they gave us the ability to expose more data than you could get just by scraping the site, and to support some games besides WoW. So that was the beginning of the game data APIs that we use today, and we support them for World of Warcraft, for StarCraft 2, and for Diablo 3.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you everyone for sharing your experiences with our audience. Let's go to the Q&A section now, and I believe we have our first question right over here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Scott, and I work with Blizzard Entertainment.
Hi, Scott. Hi, Scott.
I just have one question very quickly before we turn it over to other folks here, and that is, Diana Michelle, you mentioned that you're working on new projects, and that sounds very, very exciting. What can you tell us about those new projects?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Everybody hear that?
I can talk about my product.
Okay, good to know. I'm sure we'll have exciting news in the future. Thank you.
We have a question over here.
All aboard! Hi, everyone. My question is for everyone. I just wanted to know, what software do you guys use on the daily basis, and does it vary from game to game, or do you guys all use the same IDE or anything like that?
So on the World of Warcraft team, we're primarily using the Microsoft developer, MS Developer. So we're on 2017 at this point.
Yeah. On Overwatch, we use Visual Studio as well, 2017. We use, different SDKs and whatnot to target the consoles, because we're not just PC, we are on the consoles. So we have to use some third-party tools that Sony provides and Microsoft provides and things like that as well.
I would say for me, VS Code is actually an application that I've been using a lot of. To the point where I'm currently using it to do C++ development, which makes all the Visual Studio users go, wait, what? But yeah, that, and then also this is just kind of a general thing. I highly recommend people learning the VI bindings for people who can really get through it. It's a great way to speed up your software development and the ability to write out code.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Let's go to our next question on this side.
Hi, so I'm Josh. I'm part of the web developer API community. So this is like a group question for many developers. They wanted me to come up and ask this. So with experiences inside the game and outside the game, they're important, especially for interactions inside the game as well as outside the community. With the launch of the new developer portal, thank you, by the way, very awesome. What do you see as a future development for that? And are you planning to support more games over time, like Hearthstone or Overwatch? And what is the capability of Expanse we're looking for to just introduce more developers to this type of community?
Who wants to take it? Is that something we can't answer at the moment?
I'm actually having a little trouble understanding the question.
Oh, do you mind repeating the question? Maybe, can we get the mics a little louder? It's hard for us to hear on stage.
Just what is the best way to, Blizzard's looking for to invest in API communities for Overwatch and Hearthstone and kind of improve the quality of life for current developers invested in the current APIs, basically.
Gotcha. Well, one of our goals this year has actually been to make the authoring experience easier for the API publishers. One of the issues we've had was just the barrier of entry to releasing new APIs and to releasing improvements to the APIs that we currently have. So one of the big deals with the developer portal and API gateway was to try to smooth that out, to just make it as easy as possible for us to bring something new to market. As far as ways that we can hear from the community, we read every post in the Blizzard API developer forum. And that's probably one of the biggest ways that we get community feedback.
Good, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll go to this side.
Hello, my name is Zach, and this question is probably one that you get a lot about education paths for younger developers who didn't get into that self-taught boom when they were 10. So right now, there's not a lot of educational paths for game development unless you're specifically into arts and graphics and modeling. So going into programming, for example, my program would have to have me take Linux classes and then some classes in Python and then some in C++, and then the next program is back to Linux. So is there a suggested path or degree or goal for someone who's trying to teach themselves later, in college, and classes that would take to help get into game design?
I would start by saying it is never too late. It is never not an option to learn to code. I mean, as Somer mentioned, I didn't start coding until I was 19. I happened to be in college at the time, so I had classes and a major available to me to do that. But that said, there are a lot of different paths even post-college. There are a lot of different online resources. And I think one of the best things that you can do for yourself is try to give yourself a small goal of this is what I want to create. So for instance, if you wanted to get into game development, you might go home tonight and say, I wonder how I would build Tetris. You're not making rocket science in terms of a new game, but it's really great to learn how a game is made from end to end. So give yourself something small and achievable to learn to do it, and then you can find a ton of online resources and suggestions on how you might start, and then you might find yourself down a path of a new language or a new architecture or a new data structure. But there's a lot out there where you can start with a small project.
Yeah, and kind of following on with Rochelle, like that's exactly what I did in order to become a software developer, right? So it was basically just picking up a book and going, hey, what's the smallest thing that I can do to start learning some of the stuff that just at the moment didn't make any sense to me. And every time that I took one step, I knew a little bit more, I could go a little bit further. And it just starts compounding, right? So if you start with something really small of like, hey, I now know how to do a for loop, right? And then you go from that to, oh, well, if I can do a for loop, maybe I can make a game of Snake, right? And then from a game of Snake, maybe I can start doing all of these other things. And it just gets bigger and bigger as you go.
Thank you. OK. Thank you. On this side, please.
Hi, my name is Andrew, and I'm a computer science student right now, and I have been working on projects, small projects like you were just talking about, and I was wondering how you would show that in a resume or like a cover letter, show off my skills.
If you're working on projects outside of class, that's a huge win. Like, you really want to let us know about that. You definitely want to talk about that in your interview. I've mentioned it on your resume. That's something that I always encourage people to do.
Yeah, as a hiring manager, if somebody were to put their GitHub profile on a resume, and there's other things that like pique my interest, I'm definitely going to go look at that and see what somebody's putting together.
+1 on the GitHub, that's really a good place to go. If that's on your resume as the top line, that lets me just go look at some of your code, look at your samples. If anybody out there is a shader writer, doing something on ShaderToy or whatnot, or some of the WebGL sites, so that you just put those links right in your LinkedIn or your resume, and I can just go see what you've done. Like, it's really helpful when I'm interviewing people.
And be sure to curate that as best you can as well. That's representing you as an engineer and the skills that you have. Put your best foot forward there when you do that. So when we look at it, we can really see what you can do.
Thank you.
OK, we'll go to this side.
Hey, I'm Rob. I found it really interesting yesterday at the Overwatch What's Next when they were talking about, as you mentioned, the memory budget issues with Ash and Bob. And I was wondering, on the flip side of that, are there ever situations where the team brings you a character and you've got plenty of budget left? Do you bring it back to them and say, hey, you can add some cool stuff? Or do you just kind of sit back and go, well, I guess those matches will play a bit better?
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
right? Let me think. I don't think that's ever happened. So our artists, when they make textures, when they start, they actually make it at 4K, 4096 resolution, like just ginormous textures, really. So it's really never a case of, we didn't use all the budget. It's always a case of, we have this hero that takes about 200 to 300 megabytes. Okay, now we have to get it in budget. How do we do that? So, I mean, it would be great one day if that happened, but at this point, I don't think that'll ever happen.
Artists are aware of the budget, and they usually try to push the limits.
Yeah.
As they should.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What sorts of challenges do you face making MMOs and esports that developers of other large online services don't normally have to deal with?
So one of the biggest issues that you have to deal with on a morgue is when you're releasing an update, say to your art files or your terrain data or whatever, you have to worry about patch size. And that's not something most other games have to worry about. You're continually patching, and so you want to minimize the amount of data you have to push over the wire to those users. That's something other games don't really have to deal with very much.
I'd also say that our games are global, And so we try as much as we can to give all players across the globe the same experience, and different teams approach that different ways, but that is a challenge that there's a lot of thought, especially engineering thought behind. That means scale. That also means simultaneous launch sometimes. Sometimes it means staggered launch. Making sure that we're thinking about all of those things. All of us have to think about that on all the things that we do.
For Overwatch, something that's challenging for the entire engine team is when we run at the competitive level, they want the highest frame rate possible to have the lowest input lag. So we're routinely trying to push that 300 FPS limit to make sure that they can get that. And for us, that's just a crazy fast frame time. So we have to make sure that we take advantage of multi-core. We have to make sure we don't have big spikes in frame times, all that kind of stuff. And that's really challenging for an engine team.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, my name is Ari. I am actually a student for computer science. I'm in my 3rd year. I'm applying to an internship this summer. And I was actually, sorry, I'm very...
There we go.
That's better.
So my name is Ari. I'm applying to the computer science internships this summer. And I was actually wondering what some of your favorite algorithms to use or implement were, and if you guys had any resources you really like for algorithms off the top of your head.
So I would encourage you to just read up on all the various major data structures, hash tables, linked lists, know the appropriate data structure for the appropriate instance, right? And not everything's appropriate for every case.
I would say, to me, there's like core object-oriented design principles, things like the solid fundamentals. I'm a big fan of, Uncle Bob. If you, search the internet, you'll probably find some stuff on him. But those things can actually transcend what language you're working in, what focus area you have. So if you went into, let's say, web development, it still applies. If you're doing game dev, it still applies. And those, to me, are really the things that you should be focusing on first. And then it's like, from there, the data structures. And then from there, it's like more, I'd say, like domain-specific stuff.
I'd also like to throw in there, I know your question was about like technical side, but there is a really important aspect to something that we all do every day, which is communicate with other disciplines and communicate with fellow engineers. So I started as an intern at Blizzard. I went through the internship program. I highly recommend it. And my first manager was somebody that I wanted to know later. What did you see in me? Why did you hire me? Why did you pick me? I was sure they had other applicants. And I eventually asked him this about 2/3 of the way through my summer. And I thought it would be because I had some great knowledge of coding structures and architecture or some perfect answer to some technical question. The answer was because you made eye contact with me. And it doesn't mean that I didn't know those other things, but that was actually what made me stand out, was that I was able to have a conversation and that I was thinking about how I came off when I communicated. And that's something to not neglect, because you will do it every day as an engineer.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sell in our store and our community gets to enjoy and gift, and at the same time helping really an awesome cause or an organization, help them to achieve their goals and helping out, just our community and society in general.
Up next, Restoring History, Creating World of Warcraft Classic.
Hello, BlizzCon. So it's been an awesome weekend so far. We've talked a lot about World of Warcraft. We have more to say, most of it looking forward to what's coming next. But for the next 45 minutes, we're going to look backwards. We're going to look at the origins of World of Warcraft and tell the story of how we have brought the 2006 experience back here and been able to share it all with you today. That's a game that touched all of our hearts. It's a game that really is the reason why I'm standing here today. It's a game that is the reason, so some could argue that BlizzCon exists at all. Back in 2005, it was World of Warcraft that forged these powerful ties between people who'd spent long nights running dungeons together, running flags in Warsong Gulch, who wanted to get in a car, get in a plane, cross the country, and come out here to put faces to names and to voices and actually meet the people that they felt like they already knew, thanks to this world that we had created. And it is an incredible honor to be up here and to be able to speak to the story of how we were able to bring it back. And a lot of that story is actually a technical one. It's about archaeology, it's about restoration. And allow me to introduce, to tell the first part of the story, senior software engineer Omar Gonzalez, who will tell you about the origins of WoW Classic.
It's the instructions that we give to our